One carries the gilded flame of Iwa Palace. The other carries a purple patterned mark I do not know. 3 Foundation establishment cultivators bring nearly 100 Iwa Palace disciples down from the first ship, and Unyo is among them. Every loose cultivator in the street is doing the same math behind their eyes. The little county princess who lit up the whole upper floor of Twizen Tower a year ago looks like a star from where I am standing. She is very high, very far, and not nearly as bright as she was. The wind and snow do not slow the market down at all. Every rampaging demon beast within 1,000 miles has quietly turned into spirit stones in somebody's ledger. Inside a back room, Shimriol drags his injured body upright to beg forgiveness, telling Unyo that he and Yuk Chongchong lost the entire consignment. Yuk Chongchong stands beside him and says nothing at all in her own defense. Unyo asks only how much. She takes the number the way she would take weather news from another province, calm enough to sit still while Mount Baekdu came apart. Her knuckles have gone white, and there is the smallest tremor in them. 700 or 800 spirit stones of goods, meant to be sold through the busy season and turned into her own Foundation establishment. Nobody plans for a night like that one. She does not punish them. She lets out one long breath, tells them to keep running the Chamber of Commerce, and moves on, because they survived, and a living pair of managers can earn the stones back. The private room upstairs is a funeral with food. Li Yu and I are hosting an intersect disciple of Iwa Palace, and none of us can think of anything cheerful. I change the subject and ask whether something big has happened inside Wool State. Unyo is made of firmer material than her losses suggest, because she is the first one to smile. She tells us an elder of the Divine Sword sect has reached the Golden Core late stage, and that the sect has formed an alliance with Heonium Pavilion. Everything from the last month rearranges itself in my head. That is why the support pouring into this market is so lavish, and why one of those flying ships flies a mark that is not Iwa Palace's. Wool State has 3 great sects: the Divine Sword sect, Iwa Palace, and Heonium Pavilion. The Divine Sword sect was already the strongest of them before it produced the state's first Golden Core late-stage great cultivator. Then she adds the part that turns my stomach cold, that the elder in question is not yet 300 years old. Even Li Yu understands what that means. A Golden Core late-stage cultivator that young has a real chance of becoming the first Nascent Soul true monarch Wool State has ever had. For the other 2 sects that is not news but a countdown. No wonder Jimbo Tower is throwing its medium-grade arts open to any beggar with 100 spirit stones. I say as much, and Unyo nods hard, then tells us Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion have formally allied, and that every market either of them controls is being opened wide. Li Liu is the plainest man I know, and even he blurts out the question, whether this means war. War in the cultivation world is a phrase every one of us grew up hearing, and none of us has ever seen. Not yet, she says, but preparation is preparation. With the alliance signed, it is not only medium-grade legacies being released, it is high-grade legacies, and the Foundation establishment pill itself. That last one makes the hair stand up on my arms, and not only mine. Nothing in this world comes free. The Foundation establishment pill has been locked inside the 3 great sects since long before I was born. Now the 2 allied sects will have their own alchemists refine one for anybody who brings the materials. The catch is exactly as ugly as it should be. A man may pay for his advancement by selling himself as cannon fodder to the Alliance, or by going into Divine Sword sect territory to make trouble and kill cultivators of his own realm. So the bandit trade is about to get much busier. If Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion can burn loose cultivators as attrition, the Divine Sword sect can do arithmetic too. When sects go to war, the consumables always come from our end of the shelf. Even Li Yu, worried as he is, has a restless little light in his eyes now. That is how well the offer is designed. Unyo's reason for coming here is not subtle either. She wants Foundation establishment. The core spirit medicine for the pill is no secret, and it is not truly irreplaceable, because a second layer demon beast's demon core will substitute for it. A third layer beast is useless for the purpose, since by then the core has already condensed into an inner core. The Unmu Mountains are the best hunting ground in Reach, which is why every ship in the sky came here. The banquet breaks up with everyone heavier than they arrived, and Shim Riol and Yuk Chongchong go back to running the Chamber of Commerce with their guilt riding along. Out under the falling snow, a Heonium Pavilion building has already gone up beside Jimbo Tower. Finished, staffed, open. The cultivation world moves fast when it is frightened. Walking home, Li Lu keeps his voice under the wind and asks whether the little county princess can really pull it off. A second-layer demon beast is a Foundation establishment realm creature, and she is only at the chi refining 9th layer. I answer him by voice transmission that her Foundation establishment would be pure profit for people like us with no downside attached. There is not one thing either of us could do to help. Even he can see the rest of it. 2 great sects did not bring 100 disciples and 2 flying ships for a shopping trip. They are going deep into the Unmu Mountains, and the Green Bamboo Mountain Market is being turned into the Alliance's rear base. The street has already worked out the important part. Somebody is telling anyone who will listen that a second-grade alchemist has arrived at Hionium Pavilion, and that enough materials will buy a refined foundation establishment pill. Somebody else answers that it is not that simple. A man could believe for the materials, get lucky, break through, and still find himself standing in the front rank as attrition for a sect that does not know his name. Then a chi-refining late-stage cultivator with a hard jaw says that if we do not try, we will not even be qualified to be cannon fodder. Half the street nods. That is the true fear, not dying, not being worth spending. By the time Li Lu and I have heard the Alliance news 3 more times on the walk back, neither of us is talking. The cruel version is the accurate one. A man who can be spent has value, and value leaves a door open somewhere. A man who is not even worth spending never sees a door at all. At home, I do the arithmetic instead. The Green Bamboo Mountain Market is going to be enlarged, possibly run jointly by both sects, and the number of cultivators passing through will multiply, especially at the chi refining late stage. My cultivation is low, so this cuts in both directions. The good half is that a bigger crowd means I can move medium-grade talismans quietly without making so much as a ripple. The bad half is that crowds bring chaos, and behind the chaos is a war nobody has scheduled yet. A sect war is one of those things I have heard about my whole life and never once believed I would stand next to. One look at what a simple market opening did to this town is enough to keep me careful. The Alliance is not confidence, it is haste. Iwa Palace and Hionium Pavilion are the ones in a hurry. The Divine Sword sect can afford to wait. The snow gives way to spring, and the rain comes back to tap on the eaves. Inside my house, I lift the spirit brush slowly and finish a medium-grade flying sword talisman, then let the breath out. A year has gone by since my talent awakened. In only a few months, the Green Bamboo Mountain Market swelled from a backwater into a famous great market under the joint development of the 2 sects. Loose cultivators have been pouring in ever since. I have eaten well off that prosperity. Medium-grade talismans sell themselves in a crowd this size, and spirit stones buy cultivation speed. The panel says lifespan 41 of 99 now, Realm Chi refining 4th layer at 28 of 100, Everspring art risen all the way to Grandmaster at 138 of 5,000. Golden Light Talisman sits proficient at 106 of 1,000, Swift Travel Talisman proficient at 16 of 1,000, and the Flying Sword Talisman has crossed into proficient at 9 of 1,000. Elder Yuke's notes on the Everspring art did most of that for me, which is only sensible. They are 50 years of a chi-refining late-stage cultivator's hard-won experience, written by a man who never got to spend it. Understanding the art better, with enough spirit stones under me, moved my speed up another step. The extra year on my lifespan is the Everspring art quietly doing what it promises. If proficient is where medium-grade skill lives, then Grandmaster has to be high-grade. What this year taught me is that a skill only proves the hand is capable. The hand still needs the legacy to go with it. My first-grade medium-grade craftsmanship means any new talisman I am handed comes up quickly. The only medium-grade talismans I actually own are the Golden Light and the Flying Sword. And 2 is enough to eat on. In a handful of months I have gone from copying the Flying Sword Talisman to producing the medium-grade version reliably. Chi refining 4th layer is still thin for the world that is coming, so the skill has to climb faster than the realm does, because skill is what buys resources. I do not have the legacy for a first-grade high-grade talisman yet. My hands will get there first, and then I will go find one. A few months have made the market unrecognizable, several times the size it was. The streets never go quiet now. The demon beasts that had everyone barricading their doors have long since been converted into spirit stones in somebody's ledger, and even the 2nd layer late-stage Wolf King took heavy wounds and ran. Stepping out of my courtyard, I find Li Liu's boy in a scrap with a knot of Jew family children. They are telling Ju Il-Biam he has no right to the Jew surname, that his father is a Li, so he should be Li Il-Biam. One of them is shouting for the rest to beat up the outsider. The boy is 5 years old, detected with a spiritual root, and he is swinging at children a head taller than him without a trace of fear in his face. Li Liu comes out at exactly the wrong moment, and his lifelong instinct for avoiding trouble takes over. He grabs his son by the ear. The other children scatter, and then he sees me standing there, and his face goes red. He mumbles that the children are too rowdy, and pulls the boy out from behind him to make him call me Uncle Im. I put a hand on the child's head. There's stubbornness in those eyes, and a hardness a 5-year-old should not have earned yet, and none of it is my business. Nothing in a life goes the way a man would like it to. This one belongs to their family. So I ask about his leg instead, and Li Lu slaps the healed one to show me it is whole again. Then I notice the red decorations hung all along the Jew family walls, and ask what the happy occasion is. He tells me the clan turned up a good vein of resources while opening the new land, and that they are preparing to intermarry with the Wang family. His expression is complicated, and it should be, because those two families were trying to bleed each other to death not long ago. 2 Jew family women with spiritual root talent are going to the Wang family, and 3 Wang family women are coming back the other way. It takes me a moment to see the shape of it, and then it is obvious. The market's expansion did not just bring in cultivators, it brought in cultivator families, and 2 branch houses of foundation establishment families from Hyonium Pavilion territory have already moved here and settled. The Wang family and the Jew family can feel the weight of that from across the valley, and neither of them can stand against it alone. A family is not one man, and a family cannot afford to be proud on principle. Jew Ilbiam lowers his head and takes himself home without being told, which is more sense than most adults show. Li Lu shifts his feet for a while before he gets to the thing he actually came out to say. The clan has passed a resolution, and he will not be my neighbor much longer. I tell him it is good news, and I mean it. The Jew family never expected trouble inside the market walls, and now that they are moving him inside the clan, he will not have to lie awake wondering whether his wife and son are safe. Maybe it was carelessness before, or maybe he simply was not worth the effort. He is a chi refining 4th layer cultivator now, and men at that layer get counted. He brightens up, and we walk and trade news about the market. Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion disciples have been leading hunting parties out for months, and the wolf pack that once besieged this place has been crippled. The little county princess has gone deep several times herself and put down a 1st layer late-stage demon beast not long ago, so the shops are breathing again. Everyone is scratching a living out of the same dirt, only some of them do it with a flying sword. Then Li Yu passes along what the clan is saying, that bandit cultivators are thick on the roads lately, and that a great many of them were pulled in by the Divine Sword sect. Naturally, whatever the Alliance can do, the Divine Sword sect can do back. Turn loose cultivators loose on the other side's territory, make chaos, drain strength, and spend nothing that matters. Before the great sects go to war, every scrap of loose cultivator power in Wool State has to be gathered into somebody's hand or burned off entirely. That is the law here and always has been. The strong eat and the rest are eaten. This stopped being a market dispute a long time ago. It could turn into a war between all 3 great sects in any given month, and Wool State has become a bad place to be standing. I do want to run. That is the honest answer under all the arithmetic. Leaving the country needs connections I do not have, and a solitary cultivator on an open road with a storage pouch is a fat little sheep announcing itself. Running would put me in more danger than staying. Chi refining late stage first. Once I can defend myself on a road, then I can think about which road. Walking beside me, Li Lu has no idea the man he calls Brother Im is already picking an exit. The market gossip has a new favorite subject. Somebody says the Divine Sword sect has posted a bounty, and that killing one intersect disciple of Iwa Palace buys a high-grade magical artifact. Somebody else says that is nothing, since Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion have posted their own. Those pay by the rank and strength of whatever Divine Sword sect spy or rogue cultivator a man drags in, and pay in foundation establishment pills at the top end. There is a look going around now, a hardness between the brows of half the men in the street. Demon beast meat and leather armor are piled on stalls in quantities this town has never handled before. Shopkeeper Mayo greets me at Jinbo Tower with the words "a rare guest," and a smile that has gotten noticeably fatter since the sect cultivators arrived. I tell him not to make fun of me, that if I had known Iwa Palace was going to open its doors to the world, I could have sold my services to anybody. Inside, I am less cheerful about it, since I spent years working my way into the Jew family's good graces, and the ground moved out from under that the moment I finished. He cups his hands and swears carefully that even he did not hear a whisper from the higher-ups. I let it drop and put 5 spirit stones and a medium-grade golden light talisman on the counter instead. He praises my craftsmanship in the same breath he sweeps it up. Amazing how fast that man's face changes. I wave the flattery off and ask for high-quality medium-grade cinnabar and talisman paper, plus whatever medicinal pills he has for cultivation. Beyond the talismans, I owe the Jew family every month. Everything else I make goes out quietly through other hands. Buying my materials here in the open keeps me looking like what I want to look like, a middle-aged talisman master scraping by. Medium-grade talismans sell themselves in a market this size. Naturally, he tries to sell me more, mentioning other medium-grade talisman legacies for only a little over 100 spirit stones. I answer that it is better to be deep in one craft than shallow in 5. 100 spirit stones is a year of not eating and not drinking for a man who still owes the Jew family 10 years of talismans. Then I fail to leave, and his smile goes knowing because Jinbo Tower has put a great deal on its shelves lately. He tells me the roads are not peaceful and that rogue cultivators are working inside the market now, and offers me everything from defensive magical artifacts down to spells. I tell him my whole net worth is standing in front of him, and a defensive magical artifact is a dream for other men. Then I ask whether the tower carries experience handbooks written by advanced cultivators on spells or talismans. Of course he has them. He rattles the prices off happily. A chi refining late-stage great cultivator's lifetime insights on wood attribute spell work run 80 spirit stones, and a high-grade talisman master's experience handbook 180. I go quiet, then ask whether the handbooks can be broken up and bought by the single spell. He nods, still smiling, and then says the word spirit contract. I turn around and walk out without a backward glance, loudly outraged that a fireball technique handbook costs 10 spirit stones and carries a 15-stone contract on top of it. I call it greedy and shameless twice more on the way to the door, loud enough for the men in line to hear. Then I take 4 wrong turns, change my clothes and my face, and half an hour later a stranger in gray with a bamboo hat walks back into Jimbo Tower. Handbooks like these never appear outside of sex-owned vaults, and Jimbo Tower guarantees what it sells. Expensive is not the same as overpriced. The long friendly chat with shopkeeper Mayo earlier was mostly reconnaissance. The first floor runs several shopkeepers and each of them handles different goods, and I wanted to know which counter I would be standing at with a different face. Half an incense stick later, the man in gray leaves the tower and dissolves into the crowd. 235 low-grade spirit stones. It hurts in a place I did not know still had feeling. I walk it off through 3 more streets with my hand on the jade slip in my storage pouch, adding the damage up. A high-grade talisman master's experience handbook, 180. A chi refining late-stage fire control technique handbook, 30. The spirit contract, 15. The last 10 went on a special jade slip carrying a restriction, so nothing on it surfaces for any mana but mine. The cultivation world's instinct for locking things away is genuinely absurd, and until this year I never understood what actually makes these sects strong. It is not the Golden Core Elders. It is that the legacies never run out, and the rule against passing them on lets the same sect sell the same knowledge to the same desperate people forever. Except that I am not the same kind of customer. For an ordinary cultivator, another man's written experience deepens his understanding a little. For someone with genuine comprehension ability, it is worth real money. For most of the men in that queue, it is decoration. For me, every realization I take from a page is nailed down permanently, and once a thing is proven, it stays proven. That is the whole of my talent, and it is enough. 200-odd spirit stones is nothing to a house like Jinbo Tower, so the purchase will not raise a single eyebrow. Buying a fire control technique alongside the rest plants a nice false idea that whoever bought it cultivates a fire attribute art. I change my face twice more on the way home, come back to my own clothes, and let the crowd swallow me. At the meat stall, I buy 20 pounds of first-grade medium-grade demon beast meat. I am lifting it toward my storage pouch when I see a bent little shape being shoved away from the next stall over. The vendor is telling the old fool to go away and stop ruining his business. The old man keeps grabbing at sleeves, apologizing, explaining to strangers that he is only looking for his grandson, asking whether anyone has seen him, telling them his grandson is a genius. Old man Heyo. The hair has gone dry and white, the face has gone yellow, and the mind behind it is plainly not working. His cultivation has slid all the way back down to the chi refining early stage. Somehow my feet have carried me onto my old street, and the neighbors who knew me when I had nothing are calling me Talisman Master Im, with real deference. None of that is what I am looking at. Fellow Taoist Na, who sells meat 2 stalls down, sighs and tells me the rest of it. When Heoyon passed the assessment, he left the market with the group he had joined. Somewhere on the road to Iwa Palace, the beast tide that came down on this place caught them in the open. Nobody has to explain how that ended. Old man Hio heard about it afterward and has been like this since. The part that closes my throat is the one nobody in this street knows. It was the Black Wind Wolf that drove the beasts down onto the market, and it was old man Hio's greed that put the Black Wind Wolf where it was. He killed his own grandson by hand and does not have the mind left to know it. I tell him I will take him to find his grandson. He beams up at me, calls me fellow Taoist Im, and starts telling me again that his grandson is a genius. It is not kindness on my part. His vitality is burned down to the bottom and he has very few days left, and this is only what a man can do so that another man goes out with a little dignity. Behind me, fellow Taoist Na says old man Heyo is lucky, since at least somebody will bury him. Under a low sun, I lead an old man out of the market. 3.5 years pass. Under the joint governance of Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion, the Green Bamboo Mountain Market has become one of the richest markets either sect holds. In my secret chamber, the mana turning through my meridians is a full level heavier than it was 2 years ago. The 6th layer is close enough to smell. I open my eyes on a panel that finally looks like something. Imjangan, lifespan 44 of 100, and 6. Realm Chi refining 5th layer at 89 of 100. Everspring art at Grandmaster, 1890 of 5000. Golden Light talisman at Grandmaster, 139 of 5000. Swift Travel Talisman proficient at 987 of 1,000. Flying Sword Talisman at Grandmaster, 873 of 5,000. Under spells, the Fireball technique sits proficient at 893 of 1,000. Below it stand the Breath Concealment technique and the Invisibility technique at Grandmaster, the Object Manipulation technique nearly proficient, and more under those. 3 spirit stones lie dead and gray in my palm. I crush them to powder and let myself enjoy the number for a moment, because with enough resources under me, these 3 years have run far past anything I predicted. My cultivation is 1 step from the chi refining 6th layer, and my talisman making broke through well before the cultivation did. By this world's reckoning, I can now draw first-grade, high-grade talismans. My lifespan has climbed to 106. 3 years of sitting in a stone room did not cost me 3 years. It paid me some back. No wonder people go mad over the Tao of cultivation. The longevity alone would be enough. I have the latter worked out by now. Entry, skilled, proficient, and grandmaster are simply how deeply I have understood a technique, and they line up with the world's own words for it. Entry is a beginner, skilled is the early stage and low-grade work, proficient is the middle stage and medium-grade work, and grandmaster is the late stage, which is high-grade. Elder Yuke's notes on the Everspring art are the reason my comprehension moved as fast as it did, though I will admit the spirit stones mattered as much as the notes. The Everspring art suits me, apparently because the breath concealment technique and the invisibility technique came along nearly as quickly. On the back mountain there is a pot of wine sitting in front of a dirt grave. 3 years ago I brought old man Hio up here to wait for his grandson, and he waited 3 days before he lay down in that mound and did not open his eyes again. He never did see the boy. 2 spirit crystals bought him the plot, with a cenotaph beside it carrying Heo Yun's name. At the door of Chwaizen Tower, Li Liu spots me first and comes over to say the junior sister and the others are already inside. He remarks that none of us expected her to bring the Chwaizen Tower name over from Cheongsu Bay and plant it here. The tower was Elder Yuke's property while he lived, and in Yuke Chongchong's hands, it has not merely survived, it has grown. Then he drops into voice transmission and asks what I make of it, since the junior sister called this gathering, but the real subject is the Little County Princess's foundation establishment. Yuke Chongchong had already hinted at it privately, that Unyo has been preparing for years, and has come to the decisive point. I answer him plainly. Rogue cultivators are everywhere. The smell of war gets thicker every season, and a loose cultivator with no backing dies in the first week of one. If fellow Taoist unreaches foundation establishment, I gain a road out that I do not currently have. I am placing a bet, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. A foundation establishment cultivator standing behind me is worth more in this weather than anything I could accomplish alone. Li Liu nods hard and says that in all the years we have known her, the little county princess has never once been arrogant about her cultivation or looked down on men like us. Then he tells me what his own purse can bear, which is 30 spirit stones. 30 is more than his savings, and we both know it. His eyes slide off mine, so I let it go and tell him that doing what a man can is enough. Then he explains it anyway, dropping into voice transmission, that he wants Ilbium placed where he can help the little county princess run her businesses. He is not reaching for anything grand, since a boy with a low-grade spiritual root is never going to walk into Iwa Palace, and his father is simply buying him a road out. I tell him I was wondering where a man like him found that many spirit stones, and he admits he and his wife decided it together. Her surname is Ju, but the child is theirs, and a mother lays her own stones down too. Helping is a bet. Everybody at that table is placing one. His choice is not a bad one either. The Ju family is a large house, which is not the same as a generous one, and the share that reaches a hired man's son will be thin. Meanwhile, the businesses Shimryol and Yuke Chongchong run have brought in real cultivation resources year after year. If Unyo reaches foundation establishment, the water rises under all of it, and she will need hands she can trust. Jo Ilbeum is not 10 years old yet, which for this kind of connection is early, and early is better than late. Li Lu says the whole clan tells him I have a gift for the Tao of talismans, far past anything he has, and there is naked envy in it. Talisman masters earn well and never starve. I smile and let the remark die where it lands. Chwaizen Tower takes us in out of the wind. Shimryol is steadier than the young man I met years ago. He waves us toward the inner room and says we have come at the right moment, since Yuke Chongchong has just finished brewing the Green Mountain tea. She tells us Sister Un will not arrive for a while, and we may as well drink it while it is new. She is in a blue robe now, hair pinned up in a bun, and 3 parts of the playfulness I remember have been traded for something steadier. Shimryol hovers at her shoulder in good health and good humor, the two of them moving around each other the way married people do. They were married last year. That does put a small stone in my chest. Not jealousy, just the tally of every selection that went the other way for me, which is an old ledger and not worth reopening at somebody else's tea table. We talk and laugh, and Y-Boy comes up. He made it to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market too, but he never joined the Chamber of Commerce. He married a widowed female cultivator and took over the family business she came with, and a year ago he finally became a first-grade medium-grade alchemist. His life is getting softer by the season. Half an hour later, Unyo arrives with the road still on her, apologizing for the wait. White gown, combat attire, that cold clean bearing she never puts down, and under it a tiredness she cannot hide. The heavenly private room is easy company with Waibui absent. Unyo has reached the great perfection of the chi refining 9th layer, but the art of keeping 4 difficult people comfortable belongs to Yuk Chongchong. She steers us through tea and the Tao and cultivation talk without anybody noticing they are being steered. On spells, Unyo does most of the teaching, and she comes alive doing it. Then the sun drops and the evening light comes through the window in a long orange bar. She finally says why we are here, that she asked her junior sister to gather us because she has a favor to ask. Li Liu starts to call her little county princess and corrects himself to fellow Taoist Un. He tells her flatly that we all know about her foundation establishment preparations, and she only has to name the thing. Shim Riol and Yuk Chong Chong nod. I nod as well, because the fact that 4 busy people came at all has already answered the question. She takes a breath before she speaks. The cultivation world runs on knives, and a table of friends still willing to sit down together after this many years is not a common thing. She tells it plainly. For years, she has gone deep into the Unmu Mountains after demon beasts and spiritual plants. Between those hunts and the Chamber of Commerce, she has assembled nearly everything the Foundation Establishment pill requires, except the one material that matters most. The demon core of a second-layer water attribute demon beast is rare past pricing, so there is no route to it except going in after one herself. She says all of that in the tone a woman uses for a supply list. The tiredness in her face and the ugly pale scar riding up the side of her neck say the rest of it. Her problem now is the gap in her defense. Last trip nearly killed her, and this time she wants a high-grade defensive magical artifact before she goes back in. Yuk Chung Chung opens the ledger and gives the honest number 500 spirit stones from the Chamber of Commerce, and anything past that starts eating the business. She is meant to be on Unyo's boat since the first day. Shim Ryle adds that he and his wife have savings, and then the two of them put down close to 200 spirit stones. In 2 unstable years where every stone a man owns goes straight into his own strength, that is not savings but everything they have. Some of that is guilt from 3 years ago, and none of us says so. Then Li Liu offers 30, and the room actually stops, because everyone here knows what his purse looks like. He cups his hands and says it straight out, that his boy Ilbeum has ordinary talent but is honest, and if it ever suits, let the child come work in the Chamber of Commerce. Nobody minds a man saying his price out loud. It makes everyone smile. Unyo answers seriously that Ilbeum should attach himself to Yuk Chong Chong and Shim Riol for now, since between them they can teach a boy either cultivation or business. Liu lights up like a lamp. Then I put down 100 spirit stones and call it a little savings. Li Liu blurts out that the talisman trade is simply too profitable. We are both in the chi refining middle stage, and our incomes are not in the same world. And he is not wrong. I tell him I already gave Ilbeom the introduction to talismans to read. If the boy turns out to have the hands for it, he will not need me at all, because the Jew family will cultivate him themselves. Even Shim Riol looks twice at that 100. He and his wife reached their number through years of trade and an old inheritance underneath it. When I lift the storage pouch, the stones inside click against each other, and Yuk Chong Jung's ear moves the way a cat's does. Something passes behind her eyes and is put away again. Unyo thanks me without any speeches, which I appreciate. I add that there are 2 golden light talismans in the pouch as well. I hope the next time we sit down she is already a Foundation Establishment cultivator, so the rest of us have somebody to hide behind. Everyone congratulates her in advance, and for once she smiles and cups her hands to the room, because the cultivation world is superstitious about good words spoken early. Then we scatter, because nobody walks home late in this market anymore. Outside the tower, Shim Riol watches us go and remarks that the Jew family was right to praise fellow Taoist Im's talisman work. A man carrying that kind of money is clearly no small talent. His wife gives him a flat look and asks whether he honestly believes that bag held only 100 spirit stones. When he stares at her, she taps her own ear and explains that she kept her grandfather's accounts in Chwaizen Tower from the time she was small. She can count spirit stones or spirit crystals by the sound they make knocking together. She glances once down the street where I have already gone, thinks something she does not say, then looks back at the husband she chose and shakes her head, smiling. She would choose him again. Knowing what one is and moving toward advantage and away from harm was the first thing her grandfather ever taught her. She tells Shim Riol it was about 120. He clicks his tongue over it, saying that once a man gets through the door of any of the 100 arts, his earning power leaves other cultivators of the same level far behind. Then he asks the sky why he was not born with such a talent. Then he leans in and suggests to his wife that they simply produce a child who has it. She tells him to go away and her ears go scarlet. She lied to him, by the way. In her own head, the number was closer to 150. Upstairs, Anyo counts it herself and comes up with 183. She sits with that for a moment, wondering whether talisman masters really earn like this because she has watched my cultivation crawl along for years with her own eyes. Then she takes out the 2 talismans and goes still, because the light coming off them is far too dense. A first-grade medium-grade golden light talisman of high quality sits a hair short of a high-grade talisman. In a bad moment, either one of them will buy her a life. She is holding 2 single-use defensive magical artifacts. A first-grade, high-grade talisman master. She has worked out what I am before I ever said it. Walking home, I run my own numbers. The complete first-grade talisman legacies are the one thing neither Iwa Palace nor Hyonium Pavilion sells to the public at any price. The world outside is tightening. My cultivation is what it is, and a loose cultivator without a backer in a season like this is simply inventory. The Ju family and the Wang family were never candidates. Unyo is the only door I have. What is priceless inside the Qi refining circle is ordinary inside the foundation establishment circle. With her standing in Iwa Palace, obtaining the complete legacy of the first-grade golden light talisman would cost her far less than it would ever cost me. That is the debt I am building. Even if she fails, she is stubborn enough to try again, and a second attempt would want the preparation cut short. That means she would need a first-grade high-grade talisman master more, not less. If she succeeds, I have a foundation establishment cultivator standing over me and a channel for high-grade talismans at the same time. Either way, I am worth more to her tomorrow than I am today. She may profit enormously from this. I am simply not going to lose. And Iwa Palace stands behind her, which means that once my own cultivation climbs a little further, there may finally be a road out of this state to somewhere quiet. I am a man with unlimited possibilities now. Nobody with unlimited possibilities gambles his neck for a bag of stones. That is what people do for 1,000-year spirit medicine and foundation establishment pills, and I have neither in front of me. Half a month later, Unyo comes to my door in person with a return gift, and the news she brings with it is worse than anything in the market gossip. The friction between the 3 great sects has sharpened again, and it has gotten dangerous enough that loose cultivator talisman makers and medicinal pill masters are now being posted with bounties of their own. Until now, the bounties ran only between the sects. Iwa Palace intersect disciples priced by cultivation and station, the important ones worth a foundation establishment pill. What is genuinely vicious is the shape of the list. Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion are on it, but the families attached to those sects are pointedly left off, which is an invitation written in the plainest possible language. Somebody always takes it, especially when the payment is a foundation establishment pill. And now the medium-grade pill masters and talisman makers among the loose cultivators are on it too. Because chaos among us costs the sects nothing at all. So I have a bounty on my head. I did not see that coming at 44 years old, and after the first shock, what actually offends me is how small the number is. I slap the table anyway. Not for the price, for the fact that I now have to think before I walk to the market. Then I stop and rub my chin, because I have been looking at the wrong side of the ledger. Every talisman maker and pill master in this town who is not under a sect or a great family is about to bury his identity. All of them will start selling exactly the way I already sell, in the dark, through cutouts, to strangers. My quiet trade stops being conspicuous the moment it becomes normal. On top of that, none of them has my talent for locking a face down. This might turn out to be the best year I have ever had. Unyo's gift makes the day better still, because it is a spell that simply is not for sale, which is what being a great sex disciple buys a person. The Jade Slip names it the Wood Spirit Spike, an advanced spell meant to be paired with a magical artifact, and its virtues are absurdly low mana cost and almost perfect concealment. The difficulty sits in the cultivator, in how deeply he understands his own wood attribute art, and how finely he controls his mana, and it wants a hidden weapon-type magical artifact to carry it. The slip holds the whole cultivation process and the artifact pairing besides. There are more quiet monsters in this world than anyone admits. She must have judged some time ago that my comprehension of the Everspring art is no longer behind a chi-refining late-stage cultivators, or she would never have handed me something like this. The introduction does read like a storyteller wrote it. The spell was built 100 years ago by an Iwa Palace cultivator out of the elementary spirit-bombing finger. The man is credited with fighting 3 cultivators of his own level at once, leaving 1 dead, 1 crippled, and 1 running. Wood attribute arts are supposed to be about longevity and gentle mana, with only the deeply cultivated ever showing thick continuous power. So I try it. A medium-grade golden light talisman goes up over the wall, and in the soft gold light I raise my hand and a wooden spike forms, wrapped in mana. Green light gone before the eye can follow. 1 thin ring of ripples across the golden barrier, and the spike is powder. I have to sit down for a second. The speed is unreasonable. At close range, careless at the chi refining 5th layer, I doubt I could get out of the way of it. so I test the other half. I let the talisman on the wall bleed down to low-grade strength, then flick my finger 5 times running. The 5th spike punches straight through the golden light talisman's defense and digs a shallow pit into stone that is not soft. An ordinary wooden spike, no artifact behind it, and it would have opened a bloody hole through a man. Paired with a proper flying needle magical artifact, it hardly bears thinking about. Then I look at my hand and stop congratulating myself, because my fingers are swollen and red after 5 casts. My comprehension and my mana control are already the equal of an ordinary chi-refining late-stage cultivator, and 5 casts crippled my fingers. Compression, rotation, and the instant of release all have to arrive together, and dropping any one of them wastes the whole attempt. Still, the panel moves while I am hurting. 48 at first and the entry line filling to 98 of 100. Then another 80 lands and the spell stands at proficient, 78 of 500, inside 1 evening. Add a flying needle-type magical artifact built to cut through mana shields, and I could genuinely threaten a cultivator of my own level. That thought heats my head for a while. The cost per cast is so low that I can grind this spell all the way to Grandmaster on Spirit Stones alone. Hidden weapon magical artifacts are expensive, and next to a life they are cheap. The roads keep getting worse, so I stay home. Cultivate, draw talismans, burn Spirit Stones to refill my mana, then back to the spell. Every night I soak my fingers in spirit liquid so the swelling goes down enough to hold a brush. As for Unyo, word came that she spent close to 1,000 spirit stones on a high-grade defensive magical artifact, and after that she disappeared. 3 months later I walk into Dabo Tower as a bent old man with a ruined voice and a bamboo hat pulled low. Dabo Tower belongs to Heonium Pavilion. If Iwa Palace is known for hitting hard, Heonium Pavilion is known for its female cultivators, and right behind them, for the sheer variety of its medicinal pills, talismans, and artifact refining. There is a spirit concealment formation running inside the building, which does help a customer keep his face to himself, and I still intend to be careful. Both Jinbo Tower and Dabo Tower installed those formations openly once the last 2 years turned tense, and they installed them for sales, so that everyone would know a man is safe for shopping indoors. 2 female cultivators in very little clothing meet me at the door with a wave of perfume and invite me in. If this world ever settles down, I would not mind spending my afternoons in a place like this. I rasp that I am here for better quality magical artifacts, and one of them lights up and calls me senior and points me at the stairs. That face changed faster than the weather. Asking for better quality means at least a medium-grade magical artifact, which is why the smiles arrived. Neither of them will be following me up, since inferior spiritual roots decorate the ground floor and go no further. A shopkeeper is already waiting at the head of the stairs, slightly round in all courtesy. He arches his hands, tells me Dabo Tower carries everything and even auctions top-grade magical artifacts once a year, then asks what this old man has in mind. A well-made maid sets down spiritual tea and spiritual fruit. I tell him he is too kind, and that an old man only wants 1 or 2 medium-grade magical artifacts to keep himself alive. Under the formation, nobody can read my cultivation. Nobody below Foundation Establishment, anyway. An old man shopping for a medium-grade magical artifact is nobody's idea of a hidden Foundation Establishment cultivator, since no Foundation Establishment cultivator has ever been that poor. The round shopkeeper's smile stretches another inch. He works through his stock like a man in love with his own voice. He offers me a yellow silk umbrella that guards and strikes at once, then a Hyon iron flying sword he swears is beyond sharp, all of it medium grade. I am tempted, which is embarrassing in my age, and then I remember what is actually in my storage pouch. Every stone I have earned in years went straight back into cultivation, so even a profitable man can stand in a treasure shop with empty hands. I cut him off and ask whether Dabo Tower carries wood attribute flying needle hidden weapons. Ideally something that suppresses protective spiritual light. The wood spirit spike only reaches its full shape paired with a flying needle. That stops him, because a hidden weapon that is also wood attribute is not a thing shops keep in a drawer. Then something occurs to him and the smile comes back wider than before. He declares that of course they have it, and that if Dabo Tower does not stock a treasure, then nobody in the whole Green Bamboo Mountain Market is worth walking to. He thumps his own chest about the depth of Heonium Pavilion while his hand is already moving, and 2 vermilion brocade boxes drift out of the back of the room. The first, he says, is the heart-piercing nail, the best of the medium-grade artifacts, carrying corpse poison indispensable for a careful man. The second is the emerald feather arrow, a short arrow whose own wood holds a violent poison. So he has just tried to sell an old man a coffin nail. This place really does have everything. I tell him the first is too big and the second is too long. He blinks at a customer whose complaint is size, decides not to ask, and keeps smiling. Then he says that under those conditions no medium-grade artifact will do, but that I have come on a lucky day, because there is a damaged high-grade magical artifact that fits exactly. The formation at the back of the room ripples and a small fine box settles on the table. Inside are 3 ink green wooden flying needles with spiritual light crawling over them. He tells me they were refined from the poison thorns growing on the stems of the 10,000 poison flower out in the Unmu Mountains. Even a second layer demon beast pricked by one comes away screaming. Flying needle hidden weapons are expensive one at a time. A matched set is another matter entirely. I want them badly, and I say the opposite, that a high-grade magical artifact runs around 1,000 spirit stones, and an old man cannot dream that high. The money is only half of it. Chi refining cultivators drive low-grade and medium-grade artifacts, and only a few at the great perfection can push a high-grade one properly, with top-grade reserved for foundation establishment hands entirely. The shopkeeper shakes his head and explains that I have misunderstood him. The set was 13 needles once. The previous owner went into the Unmu Mountains and did not come back. And 3 needles are all that ever came home. My eyes betray me before my mouth can stop them. And he squints and holds up a thumb and forefinger for 800 spirit stones. I ask hoarsely whether he would not rather simply rob me, since for that price plus a little I could buy an undamaged high-grade magical artifact outright. He answers that this class of hidden weapon is expensive by nature, and a complete set fetches 1,500. I point out that 1,500 buys 13 needles and he is holding 3. He tells me that artifacts are not counted like vegetables and drops to 750. I say 500. He says my name and the tone men use for hopeless customers. We settle at 690, and I carry an incomplete set of 3 wood spirit spike needles out of Dabo Tower with my face aching from the effort of looking robbed. I am robbed, and I do not mind. Flying needle artifacts suppress mana shields by their nature, and against my spell that is not an improvement, it is a different weapon altogether. What is a broken leftover to every other buyer in that building is precisely the shape of the hole in my hand. Then the wind turns cold in the street and I stop walking. These were used, somebody carried them, somebody saw them, and that means I cannot draw them casually without hanging a name on myself. 690 spirit stones for a second-hand weapon I have to be careful about. That shop is a nest of thieves, and there is nothing to be done about it, because in a season like this, a man takes what is on the shelf. Unyo is an inner sect disciple of Iwa Palace, and she is out in the mountains betting her life. Nobody is choosing from a full menu. Then, walking away from the door, I feel eyes on my back. 2 of them, middle-aged, one ahead and one behind, talking to each other by voice transmission. The one at the rear reports that this old man came down from the 2nd floor. The one in front tells him to be careful and wait for somewhere quiet. I keep shuffling along with the crowd like a man whose hearing went years ago. What was a suspicion at the door is a certainty by the end of the street. 20 years drifting through the cultivation world without dying comes with a few instincts, and being followed is one of the first a man learns. I take a slow loop and let my divine sense out to count them properly. 1 at the chi refining 6th layer and 1 at the 5th. That explains the confidence. 2 solid layers above me and a bent old man in front of them looks like an easy afternoon. They are never going to learn how rich a talisman master really is. I turn into the alley I picked out before I ever walked into Dabo Tower. Behind me they split with a sneer and take the long ways around to seal both ends. The first one comes in from the near end and finds an old man with a straggling gray beard hobbling straight toward him. I watch the confusion arrive in his face a half second before the blood does. Green light crosses the gap and is gone. His pupils shrink, and whatever question he was forming goes dark with him. I walk past the collapsing body without slowing, wiping the needle clean, and I am not calm at all. That spell is not a spell. It is exactly what the foundation establishment cultivators call it. The second one comes in from the far end calling for his 3rd brother, sees the shape on the ground, and floods with fury and fear at once. He uses the object manipulation technique to prop the body up from a distance in case it is bait, finds no breath in it, and terror wins. Nothing kills a cultivator that fast. He decides to leave, and then he cannot resist reaching for his brother's storage pouch first. Heat blooms across the alley and paints his cheek red. He sees the firelight in time to throw up his mana shield, and does not see the streak of green that comes in behind his back, and the shield flickers once around a hairline crack. The blast takes what is left. I walk out through the burning air and collect 2 storage pouches that will not be arguing about ownership. By the time the wind has scattered the fire, there are only a few scorch marks left on the stones. After that, I spent an hour becoming 4 different men, with a stop at a restaurant so thick with powder, perfume, and bad music that it would cover the smell of a corpse. I fence both pouches on the way, a dozen spirit stones between them. 2 grown cultivators hunting a stranger for a dozen spirit stones. Home, in my cultivator's room. I finally let my hands shake. Those were 2 genuine cultivators of my own rank and above. The ambush explains part of it, but not the part that matters, which is that a same rank mana shield came apart on contact. That should not happen, so I pin a medium-grade golden light talisman to the wall and put a needle through it. Green light, the flat sound of stone taking a wound, and the pale gold drains out of the talisman. One strike through a medium-grade golden light talisman. A medium-grade golden light talisman is worth the mana shield of a chi-refining middle-stage cultivator. In any fight between equals, if the other man is close and unprepared, he simply dies. The one condition is that he carries no defensive magical artifact. Then I get greedy and pin up a medium-grade golden light talisman of high quality. The sword whose shield stands close to a chi-refining late-stage cultivator's, and I run it again. This one holds for a visible moment before it opens. While I am still staring at the wall, the breakthrough chimes in my head. Another 80 points, and the spell reads, perfect at 1 of 10,000. 3 months of grinding on cheap casts and Spirit Stone recovery had already carried it to Grandmaster. The credit for that speed belongs to the notes Unyo sent along, because the man who built this spell wrote down everything, including his failures. What I did not know is that Grandmaster is not the top of the ladder. Perfect drops me somewhere I have no words for. For a while I am not Jangan at all. I am a cultivator 100 years dead, taking the plainest spirit-bombing finger apart and rebuilding it around a hidden weapon until it becomes something Foundation Establishment cultivators respect. When I finally open my eyes, my understanding of this spell is not one step behind its creators, assuming, of course, that he wrote down everything he knew. That is what perfect means, not mastery but alignment. The perfect level puts a man exactly where the creator stood. I call the 2 spikes back out of a wall that now looks like it was worked over with pear blossom needles, and I let myself smile. 3 wood spirit spikes. Standing where I stand, at the chi-refining 5th layer, I could put up a real fight against a chi-refining late-stage cultivator. Close range, unprepared, and only then. In an honest battle, there are too many other things in play. Since late-stage cultivators have sharper senses and pockets full of magical artifacts, unlike the paupers at my own lair. One defensive artifact turns my ambush into my funeral. What perfect gives me is a trump card, not a promotion. And this is with a broken set of needles. The greed passes as soon as I price it. A whole high-grade magical artifact costs thousands of spirit stones, which I could earn inside a year. My cultivation still could not drive it at full strength, and carrying it would make me worth killing. 1,000 spirit stones spent on cultivation instead would put me at the chi-refining late stage, which is the same protection with none of the attention. That brings me back to Unyo. It has been nearly half a year since she borrowed from me and vanished. I would very much like her to come home, if only because she is carrying a great many of my spirit stones. If she does not come back, the favor dies with her, and the debt with it. With my defense finally sorted, I go to Twizen Tower with Li Lu, and Shim Riol and Yuk Chung Chung are wearing the same expression we are. Unyo is stronger than any of us, and none of us knows exactly what she went in after. All 4 of us do the only thing available, which is hope she walks back through the door. Given time, there are always other opportunities. Then I go home and put my head down. Talismans, cultivation, and the wood spirit spike over and over until the walls of my secret room are so densely pitted they look plowed. Half a month later, the market's quiet breaks again in the middle of the night. Demon beasts? The word goes through the streets before anyone has their boots on, and the formation over the market flares while cultivators stand in the road staring up at it. This time there is no confusion at the start, because the Foundation Establishment cultivators of Iwa Palace and Hyeonium Pavilion call out together and the whole market lights up as bright as noon. Riftwind eagles. I come out of my door and count dozens of them wheeling over the barrier. Huge, packed, close, gregarious second-layer demon beasts, which is to say Foundation Establishment level. Every one of them. Somebody caked a second-layer nest. Whoever it was, I hope the eagles found him first. These are not black windwolves. These are dozens of Foundation Establishment level beasts, and they fly, and at matched cultivation the human race has no advantage whatsoever in the air. Nobody in this market sleeps. The Foundation Establishment cultivators of the great families in both sects stand inside the barrier and throw spells and magical artifacts up into the dark all night. Furious. From underneath it looks like a festival, colored light breaking against the sky. Hour after hour of grown immortals fighting birds. Not birds. Eagles. In the morning, Li Lu looks up at a perfectly clean blue sky and says the birds last night were terrifying, and there is still fear sitting behind his eyes. I tell him to stay inside the market walls for a while, because Riftwind eagles are powerful and worse. They hold grudges. The reclamation is what did this. Years of the 2 sects tearing open the Unmoon Mountains have stirred the beast there into something nobody has seen before. This is the first time a whole flock of second-layer demon beasts has come down on us. The whole market can feel it, and the prices of magical artifacts, talismans, and medicinal pills have already started to climb. Li Lu says he is not stupid, and he is not. Even he can see that if the defenders cannot reach a flying enemy, the Green Bamboo Mountain Market is a tortoise that cannot walk. And worse, a tortoise that cannot pay for its own shell. Every hour the market formation stays lit burns a great pile of medium-grade spirit stones, and if the Riftwind eagles are not driven off, The formation fails long before the eagles tire. That is what the merchants are pricing in. Not the eagles. The bill. The headache does not belong to small men like us. It belongs to Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion. And on the third night, more than 30 Riftwind eagles come back to remind them of it. This time, the two sects work with every Foundation establishment cultivator in the market, opening a gap in the barrier at the height of the attack, and slamming it shut again. 3 second-layer demon beasts die inside it. After that, the sky stays empty for days, and the whole market remembers how to sleep. 5 days later, the wind turns, and the snow comes down in feathers again. The panel reads better than my house does. Lifespan 45 of 106, Realm Chi refining 5th layer at 99 of 100. The Everspring art at Grandmaster past 1800. Golden Light Talisman at Grandmaster. Swift Travel Talisman nearly full at Proficient. Flying Sword Talisman at Grandmaster. Under spells, the Wood Spirit Spike sits at Perfect, 195 of 10,000, with the Fireball technique, the Breath Concealment technique, the Invisibility technique, and the Object Manipulation technique stacked below it. The Spirit Stone in my palm goes gray and I crush it. Half a month at most and I break into the Chi refining 6th layer. 5 years ago, I was a stalled Chi refining 3rd layer, nobody packing up to go back to the mortal world. 5 years later, I am a 1st grade medium grade talisman master about to cross into the 6th layer. The arithmetic amuses me more than it moves me. I will never match a genius like Unyo, but at this rate I can plan for Foundation establishment before I turn 60. At 39, I could not have said that out loud without laughing. In a famine year, the craftsmen eat, and the cultivation world runs the same way. Anyone who gets real skill in the 100 arts outturns cultivators of his own rank, and does it steadily year after year, while the swordsmen gamble. I blow out the candle, and outside in the snow somebody screams. The whole street wakes at once. I have a magical artifact in my palm before I finish thinking about it. Ease the door open and climb the wall. While I am still on top of it, something enormous hits the ground several streets away, and a tiger's roar goes up behind it. Demon beasts are falling out of the sky. I watch one come down in the distance and go straight through a cultivator's roof, and then the screaming starts properly, with the flat booming of spells underneath it. Over 20 years in the cultivation world, and I have never once heard of this. Beasts do not fall from the sky. They keep falling. One heavy impact after another lands across the snow, and the market lights up house by house. The shanty ground where the poorest loose cultivators live gets the worst of it, because whoever is doing this is choosing targets, and the beasts dropped over there are almost all late-stage 1st layer. A tiger and a sheep pen. It is not a battle down there. It is butchery. Then a Foundation establishment cultivator roars somewhere inside the market, and the night barrier snaps open. The spells go up and turn the sky white, and every one of us finally gets to see what has been happening above the clouds. The Riftwind eagles, again. More than 30 of them wheeling in the snow, and several are carrying live demon beasts in their claws. They have been going into the Unmu Mountains, picking beasts up, and dropping them on us. Anyone who still thinks demon beasts are animals should be standing on this wall. Word is the leader of that flock is already a late-stage 2nd layer beast. I pull my head down and keep it down. Below me the market is chaos, with cultivators swarming the fallen beast for the cores. And I do the sums instead of joining. 1 month at my brush earns more than that carcass is worth on its best day. There is no version of that trade where I climb down off this wall. By morning, the market has turned it into conversation. Somebody says a 2nd layer Foundation establishment beast came down in the East District and only Heonium Pavilion's Foundation establishment cultivators kept the death toll from being obscene. Somebody says it is too chaotic. Somebody else says that is a fool's view, that the low-level cultivators are panicking while every Chi refining late-stage man in town has gone red-eyed. The beasts are being delivered to the door now, and a lucky group that corners one walks away with a demon beast core. And running underneath all of it, the question nobody can answer. Which family's cultivator kicked that nest hard enough to earn this? Li Yu and I are hurrying towards Twizen Tower while he asks me when this ends, with his whole face pinched. I tell him to stay careful and to stop leaving the market unless he has to, because the roads outside are thick with rogue cultivators now. Some of them do it for a living, others simply get an idea. One afternoon. In a season with this much noise, the neighbor over the wall might start thinking about a man's spirit stones. The only reason this town has not already torn itself apart is that Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion keep cultivators standing in the streets. We are going because Yuk Chung Chung sent word that there is news about Unyo. We sit down and the news lands before the tea does. Li Lu loses his voice halfway through calling her little county princess and finishes with Senior Un because Unyo has reached Foundation establishment. Yuk Chung Chung swears she only learned of it last night herself and that none of them knew when Sister Un came back. A letter from an Iwa Palace disciple said the breakthrough happened inside the sect 2 days ago, and that she returns to the market before long. Shimriol looks as stunned as the rest of us. I am shocked, and underneath the shock I finally understand how carefully she has been walking. Foundation establishment is the largest thing that can happen to a person at our level, and a single leaked word invites variables nobody survives. It is not only outsiders who watch, there are eyes inside her own sect, so she came home without telling any of us, walked straight into seclusion and broke through. No hesitation anywhere in it. That woman decides once. The eagles keep their grudge. Night after night they haul beasts out of the Unmu Mountains and drop them on the market. By day they take an occasional hunting squad apart in the open, which does more to the town's nerves than the knights do. There are still over 30 Foundation establishment level beasts in the sky. Then, after a stretch of quiet, the two sects bring out a net-tight magical artifact one night and finally cripple the flock. The market steadies. Nobody mistakes it for the end of anything. Anyo comes back meaning to have a quiet drink at Chwaizen Tower, and the families turn it into a Foundation establishment celebration before she reaches the door. There is nothing small about the small celebration. Word has gotten out that after her breakthrough, a Golden Core Elder of Iwa Palace took her as a personal disciple, and every house in the market has come to make itself known. Even Hyonium Pavilion sends its Foundation establishment cultivators, because Foundation establishment cultivators have ranks among themselves, and one with a Golden Core Master standing behind her is not the ordinary kind. Chwaizen Tower has never had a day like it, and it earns the old phrase about coming home in glory. The noise finally drains out by evening, and the six of us end up in a private room. Li Liu, Shim Riol, Yuk Chung Chung, Wee Boy and I all congratulate her at once, and the woman who never smiles cannot stop tonight. She tells us we are her old friends, that she reached Foundation establishment on our support, and that she is grateful past saying. Nobody is to call her senior, since we address one another as fellow Taoists, and nothing else. She is in a pale immortal skirt, and she is dazzling, whether from the breakthrough or simply from being happy. The cultivation world is full of people who forget a name the day after they no longer need it. She did not, and every one of us notices. I have been on the wrong end of that arithmetic more times than I care to count, so for once I say something warm out loud. 6 of us around one table. The last time was 5 years ago, when Elder Yuk died. 5 years on, this table has known one another for 25 years, and in this world the rarest part is not the friendship, it is that all 6 of us are still breathing. Waibui is flushed and on his feet with a cup up before anyone else moves, praising a woman who ascends to Foundation establishment and still remembers her old friends. He has never in his life been this close to a Foundation establishment cultivator, and he is not hiding it. Li Lu's lip curls. Anyo simply nods a little, as though she has just noticed something, and tells Weeboy to trade seats with fellow Taoist M. He blinks, understands, and stands up awkwardly to move. Li Liu blurts out that I have broken through, and Shimriol catches up a half-second later. I tell them the truth in its least interesting form, that years of talisman work kept my cultivation resources steady and the breakthrough came 2 days ago. Chi refining 6th layer, at 45. Of the 6 of us, only the genius reached it before me. Shimriol and Li Liu are both still at the 5th layer. Y-Boy is at the 6th as well, which is exactly why being asked to move seats lands on him the way it does. He knew about the loan when Unyo asked. He also knew that out of 100 Chi refining cultivators who planned for Foundation establishment, one succeeding is a good year, and that she was walking into the Unmu Mountains to believe for it. So he hesitated, and when the gathering came, he sent word that he had family matters. He bought himself an afternoon and sold the opportunity, and it is far too late to buy it back. Unyo cups her hands to Shimriol and apologizes for the years the Chamber of Commerce cost his cultivation. He laughs it off and says the 4 of us are the ones riding her luck, since there is a great Foundation establishment cultivator sitting at the table. The room warms up on that. Waibui stays outside it, and I can see what is doing to him. He could have been in here. Then she tells us about the mountains, lightly the way she tells everything. It was a near death. She got the Demon Beast core and came out of it badly injured, and by then too many people in the market knew she had been preparing. Instead of coming home, she went straight back to the sect, spent the materials, had the Foundation establishment pill refined and swallowed it. Everyone at this table knows that if Demon Beast cores could be picked up that easily, Foundation establishment cultivators would be as common as tea sellers. We drink to her, because 1,000 words would not carry any of it, and 1 cup does. 3 rounds in, she starts thanking each of us by name, with no airs at all. To Li Liu, she gives a medicinal bath recipe, the kind that lays a foundation in a child, and says it is exactly right for the boil bayam. She is not returning anyone's spirit stones. She is returning the thing each of us actually wanted, and the value is not close. Li Liu goes red and cups his hands and admits he is clumsy with words, but wants to thank her anyway. She adds that the Chamber of Commerce stocks the herbs the recipe calls for, and will have them sent to the Jew family. A recipe and then the medicine to fill it, well past 100 spirit stones of value against the 30 he lent. Yuk Chung Chung and Shim Ryol get the same treatment, doubled and better, while Wee Boy watches with his face going a color I have not seen on a living man. When my turn comes, she touches her own neck without meaning to, and tells me that without those last 2 golden light talismans, she would not have come back at all. I wave it off and say my small skills could hardly have mattered, and I do not refuse the gift. Friendship is one thing and investment is another, and both were true when I opened that pouch. If she had been standing at the chi refining 8th layer asking a room for stones to fund a foundation establishment attempt, not one hand at that table goes up. Then she sets down a jade slip holding the complete legacy of the first grade golden light talisman. The room stops. My boy's eyes go wide, because a complete legacy is not a thing that is sold. First grade, high grade legacies never go on public shelves. Even the men who earn one by binding themselves to a faction hold it under a spirit contract that forbids passing it to their own children. A legacy like this, owned outright, is a house that feeds a family for generations. I am shocked too, and I take it. It is enormous to us and it is small against what she got, and both those things are true. I thank her and leave it there. I had been turning this exact problem over for months, since the only road to a high-grade talisman legacy ran through joining one of the great forces. Joining anything right now means handing over my freedom in the same year the state starts burning. I have watched too many men climb into a fire because it was the only door open. She handed me the door instead, and the 2 talismans I quietly slipped into that pouch bought it. She smiles and says I am too polite, and that with my talent it will not be many years before I break through again. She does not say the words, and she does not have to. Nobody in this room is stupid, and every one of them is now looking at a first-grade, high-grade talisman master. The only man at the table who cannot enjoy it is Wai Boy. He sits with his cup and his regret, working out for the 100th time why he ever thought that was the smart way to play it. The panel hangs where it always hangs, and I read it the way a man reads a ledger he already knows by heart. It gives my name as Njangan, and my lifespan as 45 years spent out of 109. My realm reads Chi Refining 6th layer, with a single point of 100 banked toward the next. The Everspring art sits at Grandmaster, 1899 of 5000. Under skills, the Golden Light Talisman reads Grandmaster at 159. The Swift Travel Talisman is proficient at 996 of 1000, and the Flying Sword Talisman is Grandmaster at 879. My spells crowd the bottom of the list with Wood Spirit Spike at perfect on 198 of 10,000. Fireball Technique sits at proficient on 923. Breath Concealment Technique and Invisibility Technique are both Grandmaster, and Object Manipulation Technique is 8 points short of its ceiling. I come home smelling of wine, which almost never happens, and I sit down with the jade slip in my hand and let myself smile. It holds the complete legacy of the first grade Golden Light Talisman, the high-quality talisman I had no path toward a year ago, and now it is simply mine. High risk really does pay high returns. Everything I sank into Unyo could have come to nothing if she had failed her foundation establishment, and I would have eaten that loss quietly and kept drawing talismans until I died. She did not fail. That is the whole difference between her life and mine. Different people, different fates. She did not just establish her foundation. She took a Golden Core Elder as her master, and luck like that has no ceiling on it. I remember a small girl standing with the rest of us at the Iwa Palace assessment. 4 hopefuls with nothing between us but nerves. 25 years later, we are not even in the same world. 200 years of lifespan waits for her. I am 45, and the Everspring art stretches my span a little, but a little is not 200 years. I make myself a promise, once, and then I put it down. Before I turn 60, I will attempt foundation establishment, and if I fail, I will not spend the rest of my span whining about it. After all these bitter decades, I finally hold the talent that makes the attempt worth making, and what looks impossible to everyone in this market does not look impossible from inside my own head. The opportunity will be the hard part, not the will. If 10 high-quality first-grade talisman masters pooled their resources for one man, that man might get a real chance. I happen to be worth 10 of them by myself. The market prices tell me exactly how much. A low-quality first-grade talisman fetches somewhere between 2 spirit crystals and 1 spirit stone. A medium-quality one runs 3 to 7 spirit stones, and a high-quality one goes for 30 to 50. An ordinary high-quality first-grade talisman master in good condition, once costs come out, clears about 100 spirit stones in a month. I cleared 10 times that, and I do it without giving up a single hour of cultivation. The trouble is the supplies. High-quality first-grade talismans are brutally demanding about paper and cinnabar, and I have bought both before without raising an eyebrow, since no talisman master is ever content where he stands. Buying in the quantities I actually need is another matter entirely. The legacy itself cannot be hidden either, not after Unyo stood up at that dinner table and thanked me in front of witnesses, so the news has already left my hands. She was helping me, and she also lit a lamp over my roof, A Foundation establishment cultivator posted to oversee the market, straight into the safe rear, with a golden core elder arranging it. That kind of backer is the only thing in this world I still envy. Word will be everywhere within days. I shake my head, lay out the last of my precious paper and the pinch of good cinnabar I have left, and get to work. The complete legacy is finer than the fragment I taught myself, and it wants a control I can only give it with my whole attention. I take a breath, dip the spirit pen, and draw slow on paper that is nothing like the ordinary stock. Faint gold gathers along the strokes and holds. The panel adds 2 points and puts the golden light talisman at Grandmaster, 161 of 5,000. A high-quality first-grade talisman master at 45. Better late than never, I suppose. The first visitor the next morning is Li Lu, and he stands in my doorway looking like a man sent to collect a debt he does not believe in. The Jew family put him there, obviously, and I have to admire how cleanly they play the board. He tells me the family already knows the little county princess spent last night with us at Chwizen Tower, and that elder Jew Anti sent him over first thing. He says all of it straight out, because he is too honest to let a thing like this rot between us. I wave it off and tell him there is no need for that kind of care between the two of us. Li Lu lets out a breath, then digs into his storage pouch for what the family sent him with. And when I see it, I go still for a second. It is the external employment contract I signed with the Jew family 5 years ago, handed back with no conditions attached. A 100-year family really does move without wasting anyone's time. A high-quality first-grade talisman master might be worth courting on his own. A talisman master who is on good terms with a Foundation establishment cultivator with a golden core standing behind her is a different animal, and they knew which one they were dealing with. I laugh and tell Li Liu that the Jew family is being very generous. Beside me, he rubs the back of his neck and admits, lo, that elder Jew Ante handed him a fair pile of benefits too. Of course he does. He cannot keep a coin in his mouth for 10 seconds without confessing it, and I would not want him any other way. From the family's side it is cheap, since paying my oldest friend buys them one more thread tied to a Foundation establishment cultivator with a real background. I take out a talisman and ask him to carry it back to Senior Jew Anti with my thanks. They came at me straight, so I will not be the crooked one. Li Liu's eyes go round the moment he sees what is in his hand, and he blurts out that I really have broken through to high quality. It is a fair reaction. 5 years ago, I was a beaten man in a dying stall. Then I climbed to medium quality first grade, and now I am standing at the top of the craft. He is chi refining 4th layer, married into the Jew family, and the gap has stretched far enough that he feels it. Even Shimriol, who used to be a young marquis, married his junior sister, and now runs a chamber of commerce for the little county princess Anyo. Li Yu is the one left at the bottom of our 4, and he knows it. I tell him I got lucky, that 25 years of study finally cracked open into the path of talismans. Nobody who has watched me will question it. The cultivation world is full of men who grind for decades with nothing to show, and then one ordinary afternoon the whole thing arrives at once. So my story fits the shape people expect. Li Yu says with plain envy that a high-quality first-grade talisman master must pull in a fortune in spirit stones every year. He adds that with an income like that, he would not have to lie awake worrying about the boy at home. Talent decides where a cultivator starts. Resources decide where he stops, and resources are what stalled both of us. He thumps his chest and promises to report back to the family so his errand counts as done. I let him go without making it awkward, because the Jew family opened with goodwill and more friends means a wider road. The Jew family head, Jew Inmo, shakes his head over the report and calls me genuinely talented and unfortunately old. To him, I am a man still clinging to cultivation at an age where he should have made peace with reality. Joe Anti agrees that my background is clean and my roots are good. He mentions that he had Li Yu hint around a marriage alliance once, since a talisman master could certainly marry a Jew daughter with a spiritual root. The hint went nowhere. My heart toward the Tao, he says, refuses to die. Joe Inmo repeats the phrase with something complicated in his eyes, as if he is counting the familiar faces who fell one after another on that same road. Then he sets it aside and says the favor is worth buying, because behind the first-grade talisman master stands a genius Foundation establishment disciple of Iwa Palace. A talisman master alone would never make the Jew family stoop. The woman behind him is another matter, and befriending a man like that without offending him is simply how the Jew family does business, especially through a son-in-law of their own house. Jew Inmo tells Jew Ante to go personally to the Unclan Merchant Guild in the family's name and place a long-term order. It should be nothing generous and nothing pointed, just the kind of routine business that would look identical at any guild. Jew Anti, an old man who has worn himself down for this family his entire life, bows and says the arrangements are already made. The The family head's face goes grave when he turns to the real subject. He orders everyone below kept careful, because his father's lifespan is running out and the matter of the Foundation establishment pill draws knives. Joe Anti offers what comfort he can, calling it heaven's favor that a wind attribute rending wind eagle attacked the market, and handed the Jew family a wind attribute monster core. He points out that young Master Jew Peng carries an exotic spiritual root, so his Foundation establishment is a certainty. Joe Inmo frowns and refuses the comfort. Times have changed, he says, and there is no counting how many eyes inside the market are already watching. If the Jew family means to survive this turmoil, one man is nowhere near enough. Outside those walls, the news is already running through the market like fire through dry grass. The Jew family has assembled the materials for a Foundation establishment pill and invited an alchemist from Iwa Palace to refine it. At Schweisen Tower, Shimriol congratulates me on finally producing a high-quality golden light talisman, and then accuses me, warmly, of hiding it from all of them for far too long. He does it with exactly the right distance, close enough to be friendly, and never close enough to press, and I find myself liking him for it. I tell him not to mock me, that half a year ago my craft had only just broken through, and was nowhere near mature. I add that I have burned a painful number of spirit stones trading experience with other talisman masters, and that the complete golden light talisman legacy from fellow Taoist Un made the difference. All of that is technically true. Buying high-quality paper in Cinnabar, calling on other talisman masters to compare notes, every bit of it was staged for exactly this conversation. Shimriol listens to me lay it out lightly, and hears bitterness under it, because he knows what it costs a loose cultivator to climb one step at a time on nothing but talent. Half a year of watching my attempts told him the sweetness and the suffering in that work belonged to me alone. He is right about the sweetness. He gets to his business without dressing it up, saying the world outside is chaotic. The Merchant Guild does not earn much on high-quality talismans, and cannot afford to be without them, since loose cultivators judge a guild by what it stocks. He tells me to leave my talismans with him and guarantees I will not lose out. I nod and take the opening, saying that since one matter should not trouble two masters, I would like him to source the special paper and cinnabar for those high-quality talismans as well. He lights up immediately, because courtesy runs both ways and a favor only stays alive if it keeps moving. My supplies have to come from somebody. He promises top-grade goods with no price added on, noting that I have steered a good number of talisman masters toward the guild over the years. Then we look at each other and laugh out loud. 25 years of knowing a man and still on speaking terms in the cultivation world is rarer than any talisman I can draw. He sets out a banquet again, and we talk in the private room until the wine is gone. A third of everything I make each month now goes to the Jew Family Guild, since they just gave me face and I am not fool enough to act above it. I know perfectly well that their courtesy was aimed at Unyo, disciple of a Golden Core elder of Iwa Palace. I am simply standing in the wake she leaves. Every neighbor in the market I ever nodded to comes by to congratulate me, since a high-quality talisman master ranks above a cultivator at the chi refining late stage. At first I receive all of them with a smile. They arrive with gifts, and nobody strikes a man who comes bearing gifts. When it starts eating my cultivation hours, I announce that I am entering seclusion, and my doorstep finally goes quiet. It had nothing at all to do with the quality of the gifts. The quiet lasts about as long as quiet ever does here. A roar goes through the market while I am at my desk drawing, and it is heavy enough that I put down the pen, climb onto my own roof, and stare east. There is a gap torn in the Great Formation barrier over that side of the market, wide and smoking, and the fight still going on inside it is shaking every roof tile in the place. That is a battle between Foundation establishment cultivators, and the mere runoff from it broke a formation. Wonderful. Nobody in this market has ever once been allowed to live in peace. Furious shouting erupts from the direction of the Jew family, one voice howling that some scoundrel has dared to harm his grandson. Under it comes the bellow of a beast as the Jew family's clan-protecting spirit beast, the Blackwater Turtle, hauls itself into the open where the whole market can see it. Sharp voices answer from Haonium Pavilion, calling the thieves to stop running, and two of their Foundation establishment cultivators streak toward the breach. In broad daylight, in the middle of the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, Foundation establishment cultivators are trading blows, and every eye for miles is on them. Spiritual light shivers across the formation, and spells climb into the sky like flares. I watch from a long way off, and I am not only frightened but hungry. So this is what that level looks like. Every young cultivator in the market is watching the same thing with their blood up, and every man at the chi refining late stage is watching with his jaw set. A wild laugh cuts through the rumbling, and the man behind it thanks the old Jew geezer for raising such a fine grandson with a spiritual root. The boy was thoughtful enough to hand-deliver a Foundation establishment pill, which he is now returning with interest. The whole market understands at once. Everyone knew the Jew family was chasing a Foundation establishment pill, and nobody knew they already had one in hand, and something has clearly gone very wrong with it. The Jew ancestor's voice tears open over the explosions, screaming the boy's name, and the giant turtle roars underneath it. A woman from Heonium Pavilion cries out in shock and rage that the man is a remnant of the demonic cult. The fleeing figure looks back and laughs that the head of a young Heonium Pavilion girl trades for a Foundation establishment pill at the Divine Sword sect. Then the formation booms again because his people outside have punched straight through it, and he is gone. I shrink down on my rooftop and go cold. Not only were the Foundation establishment pills of the Jew family and the Heonium Pavilion disciples stolen, but a Heonium Pavilion genius can be sold by the head for another one. My mind followed that arithmetic exactly one step too far before I caught it. Sweat comes up on my back. If a bold idea like that can surface in a tired 45-year-old talisman scribbler, it is already alive in 1,000 better armed men. A Foundation establishment pill tempts everybody. The fight is over in a breath, and it leaves the loose cultivators of this market standing very still. And the calm that settles afterward is the kind with something moving under it. Curiosity beats me, so the next day I go to Twizen Tower to hear what is actually known. Shimriol looks ill and drops his voice to tell me something big is broken. The Jew family had been hiding a descendant with a spiritual root. At some point they arranged a marriage alliance with the family of a female cultivator from Heonium Pavilion, both of them reportedly exceptional. The two had just come away from a second-grade alchemist carrying a Foundation establishment pill apiece, and they assumed that a Foundation establishment cultivator watching over the market made them untouchable. Shimriol cannot quite keep the satisfaction out of his voice while he says it. I can only sit there marveling at the whole mess. Then I say the obvious thing, that if bandits could pull this off inside the walls, a great many outside cultivators have already flooded into this market. Shimriol says it is far more than a few, and looks out the window at the market with something restless sitting behind his eyes. He admits he is worried the place will fall into chaos, and also, quietly hoping for it, because a merchant association only gets fat when the world gets ugly. I have no answer to that, mostly because he is right, and because the same arithmetic runs in my own house. The more dangerous this market becomes, the faster my talismans move. Neither of us says the next part out loud, and neither of us has to. Yuk Chong pushes the door open before the silence gets comfortable, her hair pinned up in a married woman's style now, and tells us it is not that simple. Shimriol fumbles and addresses her as his wife while I greet her as junior sister. She shakes her head and sighs, then asks whether either of us actually knows what these remnants of the demonic cult are. Neither of us does, and I have been in this market longer than both of them. So she explains what she has from Sister Un. The demonic cult was originally the Heonium divine cult, and its nascent sole true monarch vanished without a trace more than 400 years ago. The cult tore itself apart afterward, and the whole of Wolf State bled for close to a century before the three major sects rose and settled it. Shimriol and I sit there absorbing a history neither of us was ever told. It sounds perfectly reasonable, and none of the three of us in that room is a fool. All three of us arrive at the same unspoken conclusion, that the three major sects today very likely grew out of the corpse of that same Heonium divine cult. I say only that I see, and Shimriol says less than that. Yuk Chong goes on gravely, telling us Sister Un heard the Heonium divine cult fled to the Sea of 10,000 Demons over 300 years ago. Nobody expected any remnants at all to still be walking around. Then she names the real problem, which is not the casualties but what the news does to people. Shimriol's face darkens and so does mine, because a little disorder outside our door is profitable, and a lot of it gets us killed. Yuk Chong pats her chest and confesses that even she felt the pull when she first heard it, and she is not ashamed to say so in front of me. I tell her there is not one cultivator in this market who would not be tempted by a Foundation establishment pill. There are 3 ways to get one. The first is to make one from scratch, which takes years, requires hunting second-grade demon beasts, and demands a shelf of other materials. That road mostly ends with a man doing all that labor for somebody stronger. The second is to take one off whoever already has it, even when that man has a Foundation establishment cultivator standing behind him. The job is no harder than hunting a second-grade demon beast, and the risk only has to be run once. The Divine Sword sect's bounty has now added a third. Hunt the geniuses of the other 2 major sects, because a genius at that age is still only chi-refining late stage. The sects will retaliate, but assassinating someone on unfamiliar ground is a different proposition from being hunted on ground a man knows. It is a gamble either way, so people will simply take the cheapest one. The storm is up, and this cultivation world is done being quiet. I shake the whole thing out of my head, because I am chi-refining 6th layer and Foundation establishment is a long way off. A Foundation establishment pill is ultimately a number of spirit stones, and I have no intention of dying to save on the price. Give me time and my craft buys one outright. Yuk Chong adds one more piece before she lets it go, that the young man who died was the cousin of Fairy Yesang. Fairy Yesang is the strongest genius Heonium Pavilion has produced in 100 years, so everyone should watch their step for a while. Shim Ryol exclaims that Fairy Yasang is already at the late foundation establishment stage and one step from core formation. I go quiet at the name. The last time I heard it, I was on the road to the assessment, with Elder Yuke reciting the legends of the three major sects. Even then, Fairy Yusang was being called the first genius of the century. At the age when the four of us were learning to sit still and breathe, she had established her foundation. Measuring a life against other people will drive a man insane, so I try to do it only twice a decade. A disaster that size cannot be sat on, and inside a day the whole market has the full story. At the Wang family, the Grand Elder receives it with shock and delight in equal measure. He is shocked that the Ju family had a wind spiritual root hidden away and nearly married it into a foundation establishment family of Hyonium Pavilion. He is delighted that the whole scheme collapsed at the last hurdle. The pill is gone, the marriage alliance is gone, and the genius is gone with them. He smiles his thin smile and says the Ju family simply lacked the fortune to enjoy what they grabbed. The alliance between the two houses was forced on them by outside pressure to begin with, and the Ju family tried to play it crooked and left the Wang family carrying the weight alone. Now he intends to sit back and watch them crawl out of this. Inside the Ju family, Ju Inmo grieves for the son he valued above all the others, a genius the whole clan poured itself into, gone in an afternoon. The Ju ancestor, already deep in old age, goes iron blue in the face at the news and curses the demonic path and the rogue cultivators for pushing his house this far. Jo Inmo lays it out in a flat voice, that the clan has lost its outside support, lost Ju Peng, and lost the pill. Every ally they scraped together over years went with them. The ancestor snorts that it is not the worst case yet, and tells the family head his job right now is to steady the hearts of the clan. It would be a more convincing performance if there were not Death Chi sitting plainly between the old man's brows, and Ju Inmo sees it. The ancestor says this frame of his can hold another 20 or 30 years, and that the tie to Hyonium Pavilion must not be allowed to snap. He orders the clan's resources gathered along with the 2 second-grade spirit beast cubs, the Black Wind Wolves. Jo Inmo breathes deep, swallows the loss, and answers that 2 second-grade spirit beast cubs plus the clan's resources will buy 2 more foundation establishment pills out of Hyonium Pavilion. With Ju Peng gone, he says, the Ju family still has Ju Cholson. On the surface, Ju Cholson is the strongest of their younger generation, having reached chi refining perfection before he turned 40. The plan had been for the Wind spiritual root genius to marry the daughter of the Rion family, a major foundation establishment house under Hyonium Pavilion. 2 foundation establishment families would be bound together, and only then would the clan spend everything on Ju Cholson's own breakthrough. That whole structure is now a bubble on water. The ancestor's face stays grave because Ju Cholson carries only a high-grade spiritual root, which puts his odds at roughly half, where the wind root would have made a single pill nearly a certainty. Ju Inmo offers what comfort he can, saying 1 pill may well be enough for a man of Ju Cholson's aptitude. He does not mention that 3 pills next time would hollow out the clan's vitality, or that the price of every foundation establishment material in Wool State is climbing. The ancestor tells him to start Ju Cholson's preparations today. 1 accident has already happened, and there cannot be a second. The undercurrents keep moving through the market while I stay home and take every day of it for cultivation and talismans. A pale gold pattern finishes on my desk, complex and fussy, and the panel adds a point to bring the Golden Light Talisman to Grandmaster at 183 of 5,000. High-quality first-grade work is a nuisance to draw, and the Spirit Stones make up for the nuisance beautifully. The unrest has moved my prices, and defensive talismans that used to go for 40 Spirit Stones now go for 45 outside. At 45 Spirit Stones apiece, even cultivators from the great families think twice before burning one. Rising talisman prices are good for me and a fever chart for everybody else, which is the sort of business I have ended up in. The income keeps my cultivation moving at a pace I could not have imagined a year ago, and this is with me holding back hard. I am sitting on a mountain of treasure that I am only allowed to touch in small handfuls. I move a few high-quality first-grade talismans quietly and let the rest go as medium-quality work. After getting used to a single sheet being worth dozens of Spirit Stones, watching a whole stack earn a few is genuinely dispiriting. What I need next is a second type of high-quality first-grade talisman, and those legacies sit inside the sects and the great families where they are not for sale. So I will hold where I am and think about it again when I reach the chi refining late stage. There are things a man has the luck to take and not the luck to spend, and that trade is a bad one at any price. Half a month later, Li Lu turns up and recounts the Ju family's disaster with the helpless tone of a man describing his own house. That is exactly why the Ju family picked him and not the rest of us. Heart nature, they call it, and his is simple, unworldly, and entirely without ambition, which makes him the safest bet in any room. I tell him the Ju family will be fine, that a veteran foundation establishment house has more foundation under it than 1 bad month can take away. He nods with a thin smile and says the clan has started gathering resources for another pill, and half the market is watching them do it. I take a talisman out of my storage pouch and tell him to keep it on him, since these are not gentle times. He recoils and says it is far too valuable, and he is right, because a high-quality first-grade talisman goes for 40 spirit stones outside, and his entire fortune would not cover one. Then he looks at me with open envy and says, a man who can draw them will certainly reach the chi refining late stage as a great cultivator. Even Li Yu can do that piece of arithmetic. I tell him to treat it as a loan and let the second half of the sentence sit there unsaid. That half is about a wife and a boy at home who would rather he came back. He takes it, and by the way he holds it, it might as well be a bar of hot iron. I change the subject and say the Jew family has shown me real courtesy, so I will be sending more of my work through their shops from now on. Setting sincerity aside, a false reputation is worth something. It is worth nothing while nobody needs anything, and it is worth a great deal on the day they do. Unyo is the proof of it, because if she had spent those years being cold and looking through people, not one of us would have put a spirit stone into her foundation establishment. My gesture is small change to a house like the Jew family, but word travels, and the market forms an opinion. When a chi-refining late-stage cultivator decides where to buy his talismans, that opinion is the whole difference. When I walk into a Jew shop for cultivation resources, they will hand me the good stock even if they never discount it. A false reputation cannot be weighed or held. It lives in other people's heads, which is where it does its work. On his way out, Li Lu lowers his voice and tells me to be careful, since the disciples of Iwa Palace and the Divine Sword sect have already clashed several times. I answer him with a grim nod. Fine drizzle on the back mountain of the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, and I stop at Old Man Heo's grave on my way in from buying supplies. I tell the old man he is luckier than most, since there are more cultivators in this world with no grave at all than there are with one. Then something snags at me and my eyes narrow. Someone has been here. The traces in front of the stone were deliberately smoothed over, and the weeds around it have very clearly been pulled by a hand. Every relative Old Man Hio had is dead. I know that for a fact. And nobody in this market is kind enough to come weed the back mountain for a stranger, unless somebody has been crying at the wrong grave entirely. My fingers close on the wood spirit spike, and the high-quality golden light talisman pasted inside my robe comes to the edge of triggering. Visiting graves really is bad luck, since it is the surest way in the world to meet a ghost, and I would like to know when bandit cultivators started camping in cemeteries to ambush people. I keep my face bored, walk out through the drizzle, and privately swear that if I ever pass this hill again, I will keep walking. Behind me, once my figure has gone into the rain, a man in a bamboo hat steps out from under a big tree and speaks one hoarse word after me, naming me his uncle. It is Heo Yun, Old Man Hio's grandson, the boy this market buried in rumor years ago. There is nothing left of the arrogant young talent who went off to Iway Palace. His temples have gone gray, and the wear around his eyes belongs to a middle-aged man. Nobody follows me home, which bothers me more than being followed would. This market has been too ugly lately to take anything on faith. Then I step into my own courtyard and a jade talisman drifts into the air in front of me, shining faintly with a jade slip beside it. A sound-transmitting jade talisman costs a full spirit stone each, and only sects and large clans throw those around. So my first thought is that somebody is being absurdly wasteful. No voice comes out of it. The jade slip is what stops me cold, because it holds the complete legacy of the first-grade fireball talisman, and an unexplained gift that size makes every hair on my neck stand up. I check it over and over, and it is genuine, whole, exactly what it claims to be. Then I turn the jade talisman over and find a broken mark on the back, the Heo character, and every loose thread in my head knots itself together at once. Old Man Heo used to boast that his ancestors produced a foundation establishment cultivator before the line withered over the generations, and I had always filed that with his other drinking stories. Heo Yun is alive, he has not come home, and he has not gone back to Iwa Palace, and that is where my stomach drops. Iwa Palace is one of the 3 major sects of Wool State. What in this world could make a man that afraid to show his face, afraid enough to throw away a disciple's place there, unless he has gone over to the Divine Sword sect? The jade in my hand is suddenly a live coal. What kind of good nephew repays his Uncle Im like this? I burn the legacy into my memory, then destroy the jade talisman and the jade slip with one sweep of my hand and leave nothing behind. Right now, a man with any provable tie to the Divine Sword sect's bandit cultivators is finished, and being a foundation establishment cultivator would not save him. I understand the boy meant it as repayment, and I am tempted, and the traces still have to go. Then I decide to move house, and I do not sit on the decision for a single hour. I walk out of the little courtyard looking like a man with nothing on his mind, and go to Chuizon Tower. I tell Shim Riol that with Li Lu moved deep into Jew family territory, I would like to live nearer to him so the two of us can watch each other's doors. That is how I end up settled beside Shimriol, directly under the nose of Iwa Palace, where causing trouble takes more nerve than most people have. After a few careful days of watching, I let my breath out. Call it cowardice. It is a bad season, and I have no ambition to be swept into somebody else's disaster. The market keeps producing news anyway. Bandit cultivators run wild. Demon beasts stir everywhere. And then word breaks that Hyonium Pavilion has found a purple gold mine, so danger and opportunity arrive holding hands. The street talk says the Jew family went all in and personally carried 2 black windwolf cubs to Hyonium Pavilion. In a normal year, they would never have parted with them, and suggesting it would have counted as betrayal. The same talk says the Jew ancestor does not have much lifespan left. I listen to all of it in the open street, and wonder whether the Jew family would really let their own bleeding be advertised this thoroughly. At Jinbo Tower, I go straight to shopkeeper Mayo and ask for a set of the spirit gathering array, laying out 200 spirit stones. He grins and calls me a rare guest, and by now the news of my breakthrough has long since reached him, so the money does not shock him at all, it only makes him envious. He says my Tao heart must be firm, spending that much on an array at my age. At my age. He does not mean it as a knife, and it lands like one anyway. I tell shopkeeper Mayo the truth, or near enough to it, that the world outside is chaotic and nobody knows when the next fight lands on his street. I add that while my vitality still holds, I will not let myself dream about foundation establishment, though the chi refining late stage is still worth fighting for. He nods like a man who has heard that speech from 100 customers. Then he walks me through the array and the method for laying it out, and I file it away thinking that the 100 arts of the cultivation world really do each earn their keep. If I ever get my 200 years, I am learning a second craft to feed the first. I put the spirit gathering array in my storage pouch, buy a few more cultivation resources, and leave. In the market shanty town, in a room with the light kept out, a crowd is gathered. 3 foundation establishment cultivators with a sour, heavy aura look down at more than a dozen men at the chi refining late stage. Every one of that dozen has sunken sockets and a thin, sallow face, the mark of demonic path techniques eating a man's potential for fuel. Asked for news, they shake their heads one after another. One of them, Heo Yan, answers in his ruined voice that the chase was hopeless from the start, that the whole market was in uproar, and that they hunted for days and found nothing. He lets the rest of the sentence die. The 3 above them curse them all for trash, snarling that they worked themselves to the bone only for some loose cultivator to walk off with the prize. Both storage pouches, the one from the Jew family and the one from Hyonium Pavilion, held foundation establishment pills, and some nobody fishing in muddy water scooped them both. The scolding is still going when a figure is simply standing in the room, and all 3 foundation establishment cultivators go pale and drop to one knee, greeting the protector. He is pale himself, and sinister, and he looks over the room with no warmth at all before calling every man in it trash. Their mission, he reminds them, is to set Wool State tearing at itself, not to squabble over foundation establishment pills. He asks whether the Hyonium Divine Cult's foundation seizing technique is somehow not good enough for them. The 3 demonic sect cultivators lose the last of their color and beg his forgiveness, and he calls them trash again in a voice with blood in it. Nobody argues. One of them lowers his head fast and offers up information to buy credit, reporting that a man inside the Jew family refuses to give up his own shot at foundation establishment. The room goes still because that man has sold his own house. What he sold with it is that the Jew family's town-protecting spirit beast, the Blackwater Turtle, is about to give birth and is weak right now. The protector allows that this is genuinely good news, and the cultivator who brought it exhales and smiles like a dog. Then the protector asks them, grinning, whether they know why the market has not caught fire yet after all their work. Nobody dares to know. He tells them it is because the loose cultivators are not crazy enough yet, and their greed is still on a leash. Then he asks them to imagine what happens if 1 or 2 loose cultivators actually reach foundation establishment. Every man there shivers because the answer's obvious. Success gives them hope. Hope opens the door on desire. And after that, the loose cultivators of this market will do absolutely anything. He hands the job to the one who flattered him, and the man's eyes go wide before he cups his hands and swears he will lure the traitors into the trap. Then the protector turns on the nervous row of chi-refining cultivators and reminds them they all say they want foundation establishment. The chance is now in front of them, and anyone who earns a great contribution will be personally raised with the Divine Cult's foundation-seizing secret technique. Foundation establishment, a realm none of them was ever allowed to want. The technique takes its price out of a man, and a price is still better than a locked door. He tells them to stop standing around and go make Wolf State burn, and they answer him as one and file out. Alone, the protector's face cools. The old ancestor was right, and traces of a secret realm really have surfaced in these Unmu mountains. While the old man sits in seclusion, this is the moment to send cannon fodder ahead to scout the road. With a false core realm cultivation behind him, a market holding nothing but foundation establishment cultivators is not a threat but scenery. The mantis stalks the cicada and never once looks behind it for the oriole. He can stir the pot while he waits, and he thinks, with real pride, that he has the old ancestors' promise in him. His laugh scrapes around the dark room and dies. 4 corners of my secret room, 4 array plates, spirit stones feeding them, and the spiritual chi in the air goes thick enough to taste. I open my eyes on a fresh point and the panel reads, Chi refining 6th layer at 23 of 100. 200 spirit stones, and the thing earns every one of them. It eats 3 spirit stones a day, and it is worth 3 spirit stones a day. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth is scattered and disorderly by nature, and a formation simply herds more of it into one room than a cultivator could ever pull in alone. My complaint is that 3 spirit stones a day is the ceiling on an array this small. That comes to 90 spirit stones a month, a habit no ordinary great clan would let its children afford. 6th layer is still not enough. With the 3 sects a bad week away from open war, I need the chi refining late stage before I can honestly say I can keep myself alive. A familiar voice calls in from the courtyard apologizing for troubling me again, and it is Ju Cheng. He is past 50, a side branch disciple of the beast-taming Ju family, chi refining 8th layer, and an alchemist. I go out smiling with my hands cupped and tell him my shabby house has been lit up by his arrival. In my 5 years with the Ju family, he was decent company, and the 2 of us traded pills for talismans privately more times than I can count. Cutting the middleman out leaves more on both sides of the table. He tells me to stop flattering him since a high-quality talisman master now lives better than anybody in this market. While he says it, his eyes drift to the spirit-gathering array and stay there a moment too long. We drink tea, we talk about how bad it has gotten outside, and then we trade. He offers a top-quality golden marrow pill for one of my high-quality first-grade talismans and says he is not cheating me. He is not, since that pill is exactly the kind of thing that keeps a man breathing on the worst day of his life. Something small snags at me anyway. He has been coming to trade for talismans a great deal lately. He sighs when he catches me wondering and says the whole market knows what happened. The clan is stockpiling resources so brother Ju Chulson can attempt foundation establishment, and everyone in the house is braced for another accident. That tracks. The Ju family is the most obvious target in the market, and a side branch alchemist buying protection is the most ordinary thing in the world. I keep dozens of talismans on me for the same reason. Half a month on, the market is dangerous and thriving at the same time, and the purple gold mine has filled Heonium Pavilion's Dabo Tower with magical artifacts. Li Liu turns up in a foul mood to drink unhappy wine with me. He complains that with the clan gathering foundation establishment materials and the whole house on alert, they have handed him a business to run out on the edge of everything. I tell him it might be the best thing that has happened to him, since a decent posting away from the trouble beats gambling his life outside the market walls. The Ju family does not set a man up in a business and then throw him out of it. He turns it over a few cups later and decides I am right, mumbling that a quiet posting also means time to cultivate and a chance to catch up to me. He reached chi refining 4th layer before I did. I am at 6th now and he is stuck on 5th, and past 60 the blood and chi start their long slide, so he is holding himself back and hoping he can force one more breakthrough before the door shuts. I do not usually drink. I drink a few cups with him anyway. Watching him walk off, my eyelid jumps and something goes cold in me. If a man who has been a live-in son-in-law of that house for over 20 years is being moved to the perimeter, the situation inside the Ju family is worse than anyone is saying. I would very much like this quiet life of mine to survive the month. Word gets out that the Ju family is going for foundation establishment again, and half the market starts watching the residence of the second-grade alchemist of Heonium Pavilion. The Ju family head has been shut inside that mansion for days, and there is only one thing he can be doing in there. Most loose cultivators would not dare put a hand on that. Rogue cultivators are another species, and in enough chaos they will gamble on anything, which is why the streets have gone noticeably quiet. The familiar voice comes over my courtyard wall again. An alchemist Ju Cheng is standing there rubbing his hands together, embarrassed. He asks to trade for 2 more high-quality golden light talismans after what happened last time, and promises he has brought good pills so he will not be taking advantage of me. A worried man buying insurance for his family. I smile and tell him it is easily done and wave him inside, since the 2 of us have done this in the open often enough that nobody would blink. He is only a medium-quality first-grade alchemist, and he produces fine pills every few days, which means he has been skimming off his clan's furnace for years. That has never once been my business. He follows me and still smiling, and behind my back something cold crosses the back of his eyes. Inside the door my nose catches something and a thin irritation rises through my mana with no cause at all. Wrong. Everything about this is wrong. I glance at my old acquaintance without letting a muscle in my face move. Tell him to sit while I pour the tea and walk away with my palms slick. My panel reads Everspring Art at Perfect, 1 of 10,000. If I had not bought those 2 insights on cultivating the wood attribute Everspring Art from Anyo, My comprehension would never have reached the perfect realm, and I would have noticed exactly nothing. The Everspring art lengthens a life and keeps the chi channels supple, and because it is a wood attribute technique, it is also naturally sensitive to poison, and naturally resistant to it. At the perfect realm, my understanding of the technique stands level with the cultivator who created it, which is the only reason I can feel a toxin this fine crawling into my body. Behind me, the sachet at Zhou Qiong's waist keeps giving off its faint sweet trace, carelessly, deliberately. I bring the tea over smiling, the tea I have laced with the wood spirit spike, and tell him to help himself. He teases me about the quality of what he brought and sets out 2 bottles of pills without a single crack in the performance. Then he picks up the cup and takes 2 unhurried sips, and as he sets it down, his hand brushes the sachet. I admire the pills and lay down 2 golden light talismans. He says 2 is not enough. I tell him that in this market a defensive high-quality talisman runs close to 50 spirit stones apiece, good pills or not. He pulls a pained face and adds a bottle of chi-nourishing pill from his storage pouch. 2 men at one table, each of us waiting for the other to reach. I reach for the jade bottle and he moves, murder all over him, tearing the stopper out and hurling the contents into my face. I let the terror show, get half out of my chair, stumble and fall back into it, and the black liquid goes across the mana shield the golden light talisman has already put around me. The pale gold dims and starts to hiss and eat away, so I panic beautifully, burn 3 more golden light talismans one after another to hold it, and make sure I look like a man with nothing left. I ask him stammering what he thinks he is doing, and I name the stuff out loud. 5 poison water will cripple a chi-refining late-stage cultivator if it so much as touches him. Zhou Qiong watches me flounder like a lamb on the block and lets the warmth drain out of his face entirely. He tells me he is sorry and that a man really should not flaunt his wealth. Greed, then. He has been greedy since the day he saw the spirit gathering array standing in my room, and worked out that my purse is not shallow. Since he is leaving this market anyway, he decided to leave it rich. I ask him when he poisoned me, still stumbling backward with my face full of fear. He tells me not to blame this old man, but to blame Zhou Chulson for having all the luck. He starts to say that he wants foundation establishment too, and that the family will never spend a copper on him. He never finishes it, because something tears open in his stomach and he sprays a mouthful of black blood across my floor. He gets it instantly and screams that I am a despicable villain who used poison, which is a remarkable thing to be called by the man holding the empty bottle of 5 poison water. 2 poisoners, 1 small room. He throws down a handful of detoxification pills, glares at me with real hatred, and calls his spirit beast out of its pouch. The earth dog is a fierce demon dog the size of a calf, and it comes off the floor straight at my throat. I scream, the shield sizzles under its teeth, and Zhu Qiong lets his breath out too early. Fire blooms across the room in several quick flashes. The beast shrieks, and inside the firelight 3 streaks of green run flat and silent. Wood spirit spike. Zhu Qiong throws everything into bracing his mana shield and starts to say that a high-quality fireball talisman means my purse was deeper than he. He never finishes it. He stares at the shield in front of him, which has been punched clean through at some point he never saw, and the light on it stutters. On his throat, 3 red points sit in a neat little character, already darkening to black and blue. He goes down with a thud, and the last thing in his unfocused eyes is his own collapsed spirit beast and a talisman scribbler getting to his feet. If he had been a little less greedy, he would be out of this market by now, and his throat cannot make a sound to say so. The green bamboo sword goes across once and takes his head off clean. I wipe the cold sweat off my forehead and tell the old thing on my floor that I have been watching him for a while now. It all took the space of a breath. Nobody should be impressed that a chi-refining 6th layer killed a chi-refining 8th layer, because the 2 of us were never on level ground to begin with. I was never poisoned, and he drank his tea. I sold him the terror and the poisoning, and when he let the spirit beast off its leash to savage a helpless man, that was his one moment of lowest guard. So I hid 3 wood spirit spikes inside a screen of high-quality first-grade fireball talismans and let the fire do the arguing. Pouring the tea would have been an opening too, but a man who has already decided to kill for money watches his mark hardest right then. So I chose to die a little instead. That was close. I am halfway through clearing the room when a roar rolls across the market. A moment later I am on my roof, staring at fire climbing out of the Jew family compound with rogue cultivators swarming through it. Inside those walls, one voice after another reaches the old ancestor with the news. There is a traitor in the house. The formation has been broken. Loose cultivators are pouring in. The medicinal field is burning, and the family head has been ambushed on the road home. The old man who has carried this family through several crises snaps at all of them to stop panicking over a pack of mutinous loose cultivators. Then a grieving animal cry comes up from the back mountain, and every bit of the composure leaves his face at once, because something has happened to the town-guarding spirit beast. Word reaches the Jew ancestor that the back mountain is under attack, and panic finally gets onto his face. The black water turtle is in the middle of giving birth, and there is no weaker hour in its long life. There is a traitor inside the house. He works it out in the space of that one sentence and grinds his teeth. A broken family formation could have been carelessness, but a strike aimed straight at the town-guarding spirit beast on the exact night it is helpless could not. He roars at his people to kill them all and goes out the door himself. A Foundation establishment cultivator with almost no lifespan left and nothing to lose is not a thing anyone should want to meet. The Jew family is not the only house burning tonight either, because trouble has broken out in a dozen corners of the market at once. Outside the walls, 2 Foundation establishment cultivators run for the tree line in a state, cursing Ju-chan with every step. He told them the Ju family's town-guarding spirit beast was in a weak period, and somehow never mentioned that Ju Cholson was quietly attempting his own breakthrough inside the compound that same night. They demand to know where the man is. The cultivator waiting for them says Ju Cheong never came to the meeting point and must have died in the confusion, and both of them spit that the traitor got off far too easily. Then they cut the conversation short. The Ju family now has a fresh Foundation establishment cultivator. The riot in the market is nearly put down, and Heonium Pavilion and Iwa Palace are about to come out swinging. The demonic Path group vanishes into the mountains. For all the noise, the market never actually tips over, since the Foundation establishment cultivators of both sects lean on it hard. People say the loose cultivators simply watch the fire from across the street. The truer version is that nobody dangled enough bait in front of them. Under all that firelight, I am on my knees at home, scrubbing my own house clean. Ju Chong made it very clear he meant to betray his family and run, which means he covered his own tracks before he ever knocked on my gate. Once that lands, I stop caring what happens in the rest of the market. I give what is left of him and his spirit beast a fireball technique until there is nothing left to identify. Then I open the 2 storage pouches in the spirit beast bag, and my eyes light up like a man half my age. A cultivator packed to run is a cultivator carrying everything he owns, and this one was not only an alchemist but a man with a real position inside his clan. Over 300 spirit stones sit in the first pouch, and the spirit stones are the least of it. The spiritual plants are stacked in there with the soil still clinging to their roots, freshly torn out of the ground. The old thief emptied the Jew family herb garden on his way past. Murder and arson really do pay better than honest work, which is exactly the kind of thought a man should be nervous about enjoying. That is how bandit cultivators are made. Almost none of them set out to be one. They fight back once or take a single job, and then the speed of the money does the rest. The rest of the hall is a medium-grade kill furnace, a shelf of alchemy books, a materia medica, and 2 medium-grade magical artifacts, one for attack and one for defense. With them come jars and bottles of medicinal pills, several spiritual liquids, and a jade manual on raising spirit beasts. This is the net worth of a chi-refining late-stage alchemist, with a healthy allowance for how much of it he stole on his way out the door. The defensive magical artifact is the piece that sobers me, because he owned one and died without ever getting it into play. If I ever buy a defensive magical artifact, it goes on my body and stays there. A treasure sitting in a storage pouch during an ambush is a treasure that belongs to whoever kills its owner. The pill furnace is the real waste. I turn the bronze thing over in my hands and shake my head, since I have no spare hours. I will not let a second craft eat the cultivation time that is supposed to carry me to Foundation establishment before 60. So the furnace goes into storage against the day I have 200 years to be curious in. While I count it, all I keep scrubbing at traces and cents, because none of this can walk into the market for a long while. Fencing stolen goods is normally a quiet business. Not this month. The Jew family just took the worst night of its century, and the instant one of the traders' belongings surfaces on a stall, they will tear the market apart looking for the seller. Bandits are hated. A traitor is hated far more than that. The Jew family may well put out word that Ju Cheng stole some treasure from them, just to point every greedy man in Wool State at his ghost. I am already rich beyond anything I expected out of this week, so caution costs me nothing. I will not even spend his spirit stones outside, since every one of them can quietly disappear into my spirit gathering array. By morning, the market has a different headline. The Jew family has a new Foundation establishment cultivator, which puts them at 3 plus the town guarding spirit beast for 4 Foundation establishment combatants. Li Liu arrives lit up like a festival lantern to tell me how close it was, and it turns out the whole trip to Heonium Pavilion to have a pill refined was theater. The Foundation establishment pill had been traded for long ago, and Ju Chilson had been sealed in seclusion inside the compound the entire time. Only the clan chief and the old ancestor knew a thing about it. Everything else was staged to draw the eye. That old father and son put on a magnificent show and sold it to the entire market. Li Liu says nobody knows yet which traitor sold the family's movements. Zhou Chulson came out of seclusion at exactly the right moment, and stood with the old ancestor, cutting down the bandits who came to loot. Every grievance my friend had 2 weeks ago has evaporated. The scheme was not kept from him because he married in. It was kept from every man in that house who carries the Jew name. I tell him this whole mess has turned into good fortune for him, and he scratches his head and grins and nods hard. With the family now hunting traders, he has spent the entire period running businesses out on the perimeter, with no access to any internal arrangement. So he has already been cleared. Some men are simply born under a kinder star. He got the safe posting and the trusted name out of the same stroke of luck. And his face falls and he says the family lost a good number of people. Even brother Ju Chiang. My heart trips over itself. I glance at him without moving my face and put on the correct amount of surprise. I ask whether he means the Ju Chiang who kept the herb garden and traded spirit talismans with me for years. He says yes, that the bandits went straight for the back courtyards like they had a map, and that every herb garden on the way was burned and stripped. Zhou Chang died fighting with no remains left to bury, so the family will provide for his descendants. Good heavens! I had been braced all week for someone to come asking questions, and instead the man I killed has been promoted to a martyr. He sold out his own house for a shot at Foundation establishment and abandoned his wife and children on the way out. Liu, entirely sincere, says that brother Ju Chang may have been a little greedy, but that when it came to standing by the family, he was a model for all of them. I nod along and agree that such character is truly admirable. Nobody in this room needs to know what is going on behind my face. And I still do not relax, because a family that just staged one flawless deception could easily be staging another, so not one item of the loot sees daylight. The market goes quiet again after the turmoil, and it is not because the loose cultivators have grown used to it. It is because the green bamboo mountain market has become that rare thing, a stable rear. The rest of Wool State's cultivation world gets uglier every month, with killing for goods and market riots turning into ordinary news. Inside Iwa Palace's own territory, 2 or 3 markets have already been broken open and looted to the boards. So the reasoning of every loose cultivator here is simple. As long as the Foundation establishment cultivators posted by Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion stay solid, this place holds. A month after the last disaster, Li Lu comes through my gate grinning with an invitation to a Foundation establishment ceremony. Seeing me blink, he explains that it is not only me, and that the former young Marquis and my junior sister and the rest all have won. He and Elder Joe Anti personally carried an invitation to fellow Taoist Un as well. It makes sense once I think about it. For a great sect like Iwa Palace, one Foundation establishment is a small internal celebration. For an ordinary cultivation family, it is another 100 years of existence, which is why cultivation families throw a Foundation establishment ceremony and put their whole strength on display. The Ju family also needs the hearts inside its own walls settled after what just happened. I tell him I will certainly be there in half a month, and he leaves happy, since the better the Ju family stands, the safer his own household is. A ceremony means preparation. It means bathing and burning incense every day, and it means a new Dharma robe. I am not walking into a hall full of Foundation establishment cultivators wearing anything that touched the night I killed Ju Chiang. My smile goes flat once Li Lu is out of sight. I have a future to lose now, which is a novel and inconvenient thing to have at 45. In the secret room, among the bottles and jars, one jade bottle has become part of my morning, and I tip a drop of it into each eye out of habit. This is the spirit liquid the Ju family uses to raise its most precious spiritual plants, and I am pouring it on my face. Only the 3 major sects hold it, drawn from the eye of a spiritual vein, and a bottle this size starts at 100 spirit stones out in the market. It works miracles on the growth and recovery of spirit medicine, and it does good work on a cultivator's progress and injuries too. It cannot be stored, so it was either use it, or watch its spiritual chi bleed away into nothing. Then something answers. The panel reads Spirit Eye at entry level, 12 of 100, and a clean coolness runs through me, so I shut my eyes and let it settle. Washing my eyes has kept my mind sharp and fed my divine sense, and now it has woken something I never planned for. The Spirit Eye is the groundwork every cultivator of divine eye divine abilities has to lay first, built by soaking the eyes in spirit liquid over a long time. Actual pupillary divine abilities are so far above me they might as well be weather. What the basic Spirit Eye gives me is sharper senses and a weak ability to see through falling stone. Underwhelming. Still better than nothing, and nothing is what I had a year ago. The Ju family's Foundation establishment celebration turns out grand. Every major family in the market is invited along with a handful of respectable loose cultivators, and the Foundation establishment cultivators of Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion come in person. The Ju ancestor works the hall with color in his cheeks and his spirits high, greeting congratulations from every direction, and there is not the faintest sign of a man whose lifespan is running out. Some of the congratulations are honest. Plenty of the others are being offered by people privately calling the Ju family the last light of a setting sun. A new Foundation establishment cultivator is not the same as one with an exotic spiritual root, and everyone knows this house is about to lose a veteran. Shimriel finds me once I have taken my seat, busy and cheerful, and tells me Chwizen Tower is co-hosting the banquet with Hyonium Pavilion's restaurant. The Ju family really does not leave a single sharp edge exposed. Chwaizen Tower has Anyo behind it, which makes it Ihua Palace, so both sects are fed at the same table. I tell him no wonder he is running himself ragged, which is about as close to teasing as I get these days. Li Yu comes by and gestures happily toward the distant table of Foundation Establishment cultivators to point out that even fellow Taoist An has come. I nod and say that a Foundation Establishment cultivator is naturally on the guest list. Every man at our table is either chi refining late stage or a master of one of the 100 arts. Li Liu is hosting us on the family's behalf and did not care to lose face doing it, so he dropped Anyo's name deliberately. It works exactly as intended. The polite indifference around the table turns into warm familiarity in one breath, and someone realizes out loud that I am Talisman Master Im. Someone else tells Li Yu that since he runs the Ju family's businesses now, he had better remember his friends when it comes to prices. Everyone at that table wants connections and nobody wants enemies. My own congratulatory gift was 2 high-quality golden light talismans, which is 100 spirit stones handed over with a smile. And the Ju family members treat me accordingly. It also buys me a reputation as a man who remembers a kindness, which is worth more than the talismans. Li Yu leans over and points out the 2 black wind wolf cubs on display, saying Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion each contributed 1. Without them, 2 Foundation Establishment pills would have been out of reach. He does not lower his voice, and he is not meant to. Now the ceremony makes sense. The Ju family is announcing to every guest that it has both major sects in its corner. The 2 sects, by showing up in force, are announcing that their alliance has no cracks in it, and that they will not begrudge strategic goods like Foundation Establishment pills to their own people. Everyone in the hall gets paid. I sit with my wine and think that the 3 major sects have been grinding against each other for years now, and that a few quiet years would let a man actually cultivate. I have no appetite left for a life spent moving from one ruin to the next. The hall is warm and loud and pleased with itself right up until nightfall. Then 2 cultivators from Iwa Palace and Hyonium Pavilion come through the doors with fright all over their faces and go straight to their own Foundation Establishment stewards. Guests look at each other. At the high table, expression after expression changes. And when Foundation Establishment cultivators lose their composure in public, the news underneath it is not small. The war has started, and it comes off that banquet floor and through the market like a storm front. That night, the 5 of us gather at Chwaizen Tower. Myself, Li Yu, Shim Ryo, Yuk Chong Chong, and Wee Boy, who none of us has seen in a long while. The oil lamp puts a hard yellow light on everyone's face and nobody says much. It is nearly dawn before the door finally opens, and Anyo comes in wearing a deep blue palace gown, with a composure on her that I have to keep reminding myself is real. She tells us the fighting at the front line has begun, and that the situation has not yet reached its worst. She is the only one of us with any standing. As the disciple of a Golden Core Elder of Iwa Palace, she knows things the rest of Wolf State will hear about in a month. What she has is that a quarrel between the disciples of 2 sects on the border escalated until it became a slaughter, and everyone's face hardens while she lays it out. Not the worst case, she says. For a room full of chi refining cultivators, the merely bad case is quite bad enough. Then she tells us the sect has decided to recruit cultivators out of every major market, and will not be stingy about it, offering spirit stones, medicinal pills, cultivation techniques, and even Foundation Establishment pills. Wai Bui blurts out the last one in disbelief. The others react in their own directions, and I sit there thinking that this is what clearing the fields before a war looks like. She confirms it and keeps going, listing rank-breaking pills, advanced cultivation techniques, skill legacies, and Foundation Establishment pills. For anyone who piles up enough battle merit, there is also the promise that if he falls on the battlefield, his descendants go straight into the sect. My mouth twitches. A man can be paid for his life and paid again for his death, and his children collect. The 3 major sects have thought this through with a thoroughness I find genuinely frightening. Yup Chong Chong has gone white. Shim Ryol waves the whole thing off before she has to say a word. He shakes his head and says he has only just reached chi refining 6th layer, and that she is already carrying his child. He will keep his head down, run his business, and earn spirit stones for his family. She flushes and lets her breath out because she had been afraid her husband would let himself be swept up in it. There is no argument for the front line anyway when the rear pays the same and buries nobody. Once the couple has planted their flag, panic crosses Li Lu's face. He sighs that the family will certainly send people when the call comes, and that he has no idea what the quota looks like. Wai Bui, who spent 20 years envying Li Lu for marrying into a great house, is enjoying this more than he should. He only ever saw the security. He never counted the cost, which is that a man who marries into the Jew family does not get to decide when he leaves it. Then Wai Boy turns his smile on Anyo and says he expects to be buying a great many medicinal herbs soon, and hopes to trouble her for them. A war at the front is the best season an alchemist ever gets. Everyone looks at me. I wave my hand and say I do not have the drive I used to have, which is true enough to pass. If my cheat had never woken up, if I were still the man sitting in that stall deciding to go back to the mortal world, I would have signed up the day the call came. There is no point pretending otherwise. I joined a monster hunting squad my first year in this world. That man never entirely died. Nobody in this room intends to answer the call, and looking around it, every single one of us is either rich or holds a craft, or has a name behind us. The cultivation world is full of men with none of those three, and they are the ones who gamble their lives. Anyo puts on a lighter smile and tells us not to worry, that this is only the first round of recruitment, and the front is not in a terrible state yet. She has been lucky too, since the Golden Core elder who took her as a disciple sent her a letter after the war broke out saying nothing except that she should cultivate well. Then she says she has retained a late-stage first-grade alchemist from inside the sect. She cannot go to the front line herself, but as a member of the sect she has a responsibility to contribute to its war effort. My mouth twitches again. That small girl from the assessment road has grown a truly excellent set of instincts. And underneath all that solemn language, she is preparing to make a fortune off this war. I tell her she is entirely right, and that we have all lived under Iwa Palace's protection for years and owe it something. I cannot claim much, but I do happen to know most of the talisman masters in this market. There is nothing shameful about earning spirit stones. Wai Bui is in before I finish talking. Li Liao scratches his head, since he cannot make promises on behalf of the Zhu family, and Shim Riol and Yup Chong Chong already have the Chamber of Commerce. Watching them, I finally understand properly why loose cultivators are so obsessed with attaching themselves to a market. It is not the shops or the safety. It is the identity jade token. Now that the war is on, the drifting loose cultivators outside who hold no token will simply be seized and sent to the front line. Hiding in the wild only works until the front gets tight, and then men without a market are the first the sects go looking for. The word goes out that Iwa Palace and Heonian Pavilion have opened their first round of recruitment, and loose cultivators without an identity jade token are taken outright. Some walk in on their own, gambling that the front has not reached its worst and that this is their one window. Rank-breaking pills, advanced cultivation techniques, skill legacies, and foundation establishment pills are strategic goods, normally priceless and simply not for sale. The whole shape of Wool State changes inside a month, with the three major sects grinding at each other, cultivators dying along the borders and markets being raided in the interior. Even Li Liu stops drinking and puts everything into his cultivation, since a son-in-law of the Zhu family never knows which month his name goes on a list. I sit at home and read the weather. A high-quality first-grade talisman master does not get dragged to a front line easily, no matter how tense things become. Forced recruitment has its tiers, and men like me are usually told to hand over a quota of talismans each month instead. That is the shape of my protection, and it is worth more than any of the pills on offer. What I need is time, and the fastest possible road to the Qi refining late stage, since that is the first realm where I could honestly claim to be able to keep myself alive. Conveniently, Zhu Qiang's storage pouch is still full of medicinal pills and spiritual plants. I lay the stolen plants out and sigh at the waste of it. Refined properly into pills, they would be worth several times what they are worth raw, and traded honestly for spirit stones, they would go further than this. But every stem of it is hot goods, and hot goods cannot leave my house, so it gets wasted. It was free, and free things are allowed to be wasted. I start sorting them, this pile for swallowing and that pile for medicinal baths, and quickly discover the flaw in my windfall. The Zhu family did not earn the name beast taming by accident, and most of what they grow is meant for spirit pets, which puts nearly half of these plants entirely beyond my use. 2 of them are close to 400 years old and worth more than everything else on the table combined, and I am not clumsy enough to ruin those. Still, sitting here surrounded by feed for spirit pets, a man does start to wonder about raising one. The cultivation world is at war, and from where I sit, it is mostly a rumor other people carry in through the gate. Green Bamboo Mountain Market lies deep in the rear, so none of us here feel the cruelty of it directly. The worst we get is a thicker crowd of rogue cultivators prowling the roads outside. The market itself has grown fat on the fighting, since the 2 major sects have released rare materials and strategic resources they would never have opened up in peacetime. Loose cultivators shove toward the gates in droves now, all wanting a stall on a wall to sleep behind. More than half a year has passed between the opening of the war and the first conscription of cultivators, and business has never been better. Then a sect cultivator comes to my door, with a face full of courtesy, and tells me the higher-ups are preparing to conscript again. I ask whether the front is already that tense, and he tells me I am overthinking it, that so far the fighting amounts to minor skirmishes. The elite cultivators of the 3 major sects have not entered the fray at all, so there is no real war yet, only the early burning of cheap fuel. I ask him to spell out my share of it, and he says 1 high-grade talisman a month, or the equivalent in first-grade medium-grade talismans. It is conscription with the edges filed off. Other men sell their lives, and men with a useful craft sell the craft instead. He is only an outer sect disciple of Iwa Palace, middle layers of chi refining like half this market, and he keeps that polite smile fixed on me. He assures me the sect will provide appropriate compensation. I know exactly what that word covers. Some cost materials and a thin trickle of resources, but a trickle still beats an empty hand. I tell him I understand, hand him a medium-grade talisman on his way out, and get a little more frontline news for my trouble. Only after he is gone do I go back to my room and let my face turn grave. The war is accelerating, and between the second round of conscription and everything the disciple let slip, the shape of it is not hard to read. Iwa Palace and Heonium Pavilion are the ones pressing this time, and 2 against 1 usually looks exactly like an offensive. I take my own measure the way a man reads a ledger he already knows by heart. 46 years spent against a lifespan of 111, and a realm sitting at chi refining 6th layer, 97 out of 100. The Everspring art has climbed to Grandmaster at 3,932 of 5,000. My skills read Spirit Eye at Proficient, 26 of 500. Golden Light Talisman stands at 1,956, and Fireball Talisman at 1,228. Flying Sword Talisman reads 879 and Godspeed Talisman of Bear 121. All of them Grandmaster and all out of 5,000. My spells sit heavier. Wood Spirit Spike is at Perfect, 2,658 of 10,000. Behind it come Fireball Technique at 1888 and Breath Concealment Technique at 2,332. Invisibility Technique reads 898 and Object Manipulation Technique 693. All of them Grandmaster. There is a longer tail below that, and none of it needs my attention today. 2 or 3 months should carry me into the late stage of chi refining. 2 high-grade talismans are mine outright now, the Golden Light Talisman and the Fireball Talisman, and for the rest of them I simply do not hold the complete legacy. Half a year of war pressure has done what comfort never managed, because I have cultivated bitterly and without a break, and the numbers show it, spells included. All of it rests on a continuous supply of spirit stones, which is the part nobody mentions. Most of what Zhu Qiang left me has already gone down my throat. Everything that could push cultivation forward. What is left is the spirit medicines I never needed, and the 2 nearly 400 years old I have never dared touch. Half a year is long enough for a thing to cool. Those 2 medicinal materials should be sellable now, though for the sake of stability I want the breakthrough into the late stage first, and then an opportunity, and then Chwaizen Tower. Know the ground and know the other man, and I know Chwaizen Tower down to its floorboards. Under Unyo's influence, the tower and the Chamber of Commerce have both grown larger this past half year. They have also brought in a high-grade alchemist, exactly the buyer those roots need. Shim Riol mentioned some time back that Unyo, as one of the Foundation establishment stewards of the market, has to ride out with the major families to clear rogue cultivators. So there will be a window when she is not here. That window is the whole plan. There is nobody left in that building who can see through my face or squeeze me for it afterward, which makes it a convenient place to put down goods that cannot stand daylight. The deal is a single transaction with the trail already broken behind it, so being traced is not a serious worry. If anything, I am doing Chwaizen Tower a favor. Even if the Zhu family follows the plants that far someday, they will not suspect the tower. There was neither motive nor opportunity there at the time, and the tower now has its own high-grade alchemist. Most likely those 2 spiritual plants go straight into that alchemist's furnace and come back out as medicinal pills, or Unyo trades them upward for sect contribution. Either way, the odds of the Zhu family ever finding them are very small. 46 years old and finally learning how to launder something. Better late than never. 1 month later, Li Lu is standing in my doorway, with a smile that will not sit straight on his face, telling me he is setting out. It takes me a few questions to pull the whole story out of him. The second conscription came down on the beast-taming Zhu family as well, and the disciples with poor aptitude were preparing to draw lots for it. Li Lu stood up and volunteered before the lots were ever cast. He tells me a man can hide once but not twice, that the front is still relatively quiet, and that going now beats being swept up in whichever batch comes after this one. He is honest by nature, not stupid. The later batches walk into a worse war, and going early might even earn him resources enough to raise his cultivation and keep him breathing out there. I tell him not to be pessimistic, that he goes as a man of a major family, and that if he survives the first stretch, they can usually move him to the rear. He pulls that crooked smile again and nods. He says he does not come out behind on this trade, since the clan will look after his wife and children whatever happens. If he earns military merit on the front, he might even get that brat Juilbium into the sect. So I take 2 golden light talismans out of my storage pouch and put them in his hands. He goes red immediately and waves both hands, protesting that it is far too precious. He is not wrong about the price, because 2 first-grade high-grade talismans of the defensive kind run 80 or 90 spirit stones. I tell him to take them, because I am still waiting for him to come home and buy me a drink. 26 years of friendship, and this may well be the last time the two of us stand in one room. 2 golden light talismans are not much to me anymore, and I am not going to be stingy at a farewell. He flushes and stops refusing, because a talisman like that might be the exact thing that brings him back, and no man out there would rather die than come home. Then he starts talking, which he almost never does. He says he was a farm boy who got lucky, following his uncle to the prince's mansion with a cart of vegetables. Elder Yuke picked him out to travel with me and the little county princess and the young marquis. 26 years of immortal methods, hunting demon beasts, a big house, dharma robes, a wife and children. He tells me he lived a fine life and did not come out of it at a loss. He smiles when he says it, and he means it, which is rarer than the smile. I nod along without saying much. 26 years, and looking back at the whole stretch now, it feels like it happened yesterday. Half a month later, Li Lu goes out with the conscription column, 7 cultivators of the Jew family among them. Shim Reel and I both come to see him off. Yup Chung Chung cannot, because she gave birth not long ago, a fat, healthy boy for Shim Reel. Anyo cannot either, since a foundation establishment cultivator responsible for the safety of this market has more on her plate than a farewell. She sent word through Shim Reel that she will try to have Li Lu placed somewhere safer. I watch their backs shrink down the road until the column is gone, and then I stand there a while longer than I need to. Without the awakening, I would be walking in that column myself, chasing the same sliver of opportunity every poor cultivator chases. I have no idea how many of them come back. The cultivation world changes faster than any of us can plan around, and the only thing I want out of it is for this war to stay where it is. I have heard plenty about the border markets that have already been ground down into battlefields. And Green Bamboo Mountain Market sits deep behind both Iwa Palace and Hyeonium Pavilion. Lucky, in the way a man is lucky for having picked the slow road back then. In the secret chamber, I sit cross-legged in white robes and run the Everspring art. It is an ordinary technique by any honest measure, built around solidifying the foundation and advancing one step at a time. Its returns in the early stage are worse than what the flashier techniques hand out. Time is the only thing it asks for. Its real trait is accumulation and release, and the higher the cultivation base climbs, the louder that trait speaks. At the perfection of the chi refining 6th layer, I can feel the mana in me, thick and heavy, pressing up against the bottleneck like water behind a wall. One day the wall gives and mana surges through the whole chamber, and I come out the other side at chi refining 7th layer. Nothing about it is forced, because the Everspring art simply pays out what it has been holding all this time. I open my eyes slowly, feel the sheer volume of pure mana I am carrying now, and let myself be pleased about it for a moment. 26 years of cultivation, 47 years of age coming up on me, and I have finally broken through. The 7th layer puts me in the late stage of chi refining, which means more than a bigger reservoir. The wood spirit spike doubles in power on the back of it, and I finally have something like a margin. It also means I can draw talismans for longer stretches without running dry, which is the part that actually pays. Late stage before 47. If the pace holds, foundation establishment stops being a fantasy and starts being arithmetic, and my chest goes hot at the thought, because 60 is the outer edge of the good years for it. The world outside is chaotic enough that the late stage of chi refining buys me nothing more than a sliver of self-preservation. Only foundation establishment gives me an actual chance to walk out of this wool state whirlpool. The neighbors feel it before I have even stood up. Someone asks who the newly promoted chi refining 7th layer cultivator is. Someone else answers that it seems to be Talisman Master Im, and a third repeats my name like it cannot possibly be right. Heads turn toward my courtyard all down the lane. Up in a pavilion at Chwaizen Tower, Yuk Chong Chung looks up from her child with her eyes gone wide and says, "It is Senior Brother Im." Shim Riol comes through the door laughing, saying he never expected Senior Brother Im to be the one who got ahead of everybody. He asks Yuk Chong Chung whether she saw it and says he never thought Brother Im would reach the late stage of chi refining. Then he answers his own question, because a high-grade talisman master running the Everspring art with its accumulate and release trait was always going to arrive eventually. That is how the whole market reads it too. Decades of grinding, not 1 year of slacking off, and of course the man broke through. Yuk Chung Chung tells him the situation has been tense lately, with plenty of Iwa Palace disciples being shifted into the rear. Neither of them can afford to fall far behind in their own cultivation. Shim Riol nods, and for once he looks serious about it. My realm reads Chi Refining 7th Layer, 1 out of 100. I come out of seclusion 3 days later to find half the lane waiting with congratulations and gifts in their hands. Shim Riol gets to me first with a warm smile and a big hug. I tell him he is doing fine himself, that with Chwaizen Tower's business thriving, his cultivation will catch up sooner or later. And I mean it, because I have watched that tower grow all year. Unyo has earned well out of it, but Shim Riol and Yuk Chong Chong put in the starting capital, and they have earned plenty too.